Whatever happens in this room, darling, promise me you keep climbing.
I am not making that promise. They threw away the wrong boy.
They threw me away on a Tuesday, 40 of my classmates. One goddess with silver hair and a smile I can still feel on the back of my neck. A floor that opened under my feet while they cheered. I want to be careful how I tell you this part, because I have replayed it too many times to count. She read my mind while she smiled at me. She kept smiling the whole time she decided I was garbage. And then, she did something to me I am still deciding how to pay back. This is what she did. This is how she did it. And this is the part she did not want me to survive. 1 second, I was in a classroom seat I never liked, staring at a ceiling I had memorized out of boredom. The next second, the ceiling was gone. The classroom was gone. The floor was gone. I was standing in a space that had no walls and no shadows, just white. Every direction was white. My 40 classmates were there with me, rubbing their eyes, whispering, laughing nervously. Class 1E, all of us, down to the last face I had learned to avoid. And in the middle of that endless white, she was standing. Long silver hair, a dress that looked like it was made out of light, a smile that didn't belong on anything human. She looked like the cover of every novel I had ever read alone under a blanket, every wish fulfillment fantasy I had ever used to crawl through a Tuesday. And for about 4 seconds, before I understood what she actually was, I was happy. Hello, she said. Hero candidates, everyone. Her voice went up at the end like she was announcing a pop quiz. She explained it the way a teacher explains a field trip. We were dead, apparently. Something about an accident on Earth that none of us remembered. She was going to reincarnate us into a medieval fantasy world, give each of us a rank, and drop us in as heroes. A few of the popular kids actually cheered. I did not cheer, but I will be honest, my chest did something stupid. My whole life had been a waiting room for exactly this moment. Invisible kid, bottom of the social ladder, reader of every isekai web novel on the internet. I had practiced this in my head 1,000 times. I was ready. Ranks, she said. From S down to A, down to B, all the way to F. F is new, she said. F is something I just had to invent for today. And then she smiled at me. She did not call my name. She did not have to. My status window ripped itself open in the air above my head, big and bright, so every one of the 40 could read it. Hero aptitude, rank F, skill, none, level 1, nothing else. No secondary, no stat line, no hidden talent. Just none. Just a word sitting there like a punchline. She kept her smile on me the entire time. Sorry, she said, and her voice stayed sweet like she was apologizing for the weather. Rank F is baggage. No, even less than that. Less than baggage. A rank F hero candidate is garbage the world doesn't need. The white space went silent. 40 of my classmates looked at me the way you look at something on the bottom of your shoe. A few of them laughed under their hands. Kisugawa, at the front, was already grinning. I had been his punching bag since middle school, and you could see him realizing he had just been handed a permission slip with a god's signature on it. I should have said something. I didn't. Years of being invisible trains your mouth to stay shut when anyone important is looking. So I stood there with my own status hovering over my head, like a name tag that said, "Please remove me from the room." And then someone stepped forward. She had long black hair that caught light that wasn't there, and eyes that were too big for her face in the good way. Kamisaka Ai, popular, smart, nice to everybody. Even to the kid everyone pretended was a coat rack. She put herself between me and the goddess, like she was telling a teacher off. "Wait a minute," she said. "Why are you throwing away Matsushiro? Did he do something bad?" Her voice was shaking, but she kept going. "It's just because his aptitude is F, right?" The goddess did not answer her. The goddess looked straight at me, and she was still smiling. Her lips did not move. Her eyes did. I felt them crawl through my skull like fingers. She was reading me. I did not know how I knew. I just did. Because the moment I thought one thing, her smile twitched on exactly that thought. She was flipping through me the way you flip through a magazine at a dentist's office. In front of me, Kamisaka made a small sound, like she was trying to clear her throat and couldn't. Her hands went up to her neck. She started choking. No cough, no gasp, just her fingers clawing at her own throat, her eyes going wide, her face turning the wrong color. Senma, her blonde friend, screamed her name and caught her before she hit the white floor, and the goddess's smile did not change. She was looking at me when she did it. She wanted me to see. She wanted me, specifically, to know. And in the same half second, before anyone else had caught up to what was happening, her voice rang out across the white space, calm and horrified at the same time. "He cursed her," she said. just as Matsushiro Saiga was thinking. I heard him. He cursed her. 40 heads snapped toward me. I want to be precise about this, because I have replayed it more times than I can count. She did not say he might have. She did not say it looked like. She said he cursed her, and she said, just as Matsushiro Saiga was thinking. And the thing that is burned into me, the thing I still cannot let go, is that she said it while she was reading my mind and smiling at me. She did not need a reason. She needed a story, and she built one out of the only person in the room who had chosen me. Kisugawa moved first. Of course he did. He had been waiting for a god to give him permission his entire life. His foot connected with my ribs, and my knees stopped working, and I was on the white floor watching his shoe come back for a second pass. Shut up, he said. Trash. He kicked me again. A useless piece of trash who curses capable people, on top of being worthless, is not needed in this class. His voice was shaking with a kind of joy I still hear in my sleep. The rest of them piled on, not with their feet, with their mouths. 38 different versions of the same sentence. Get rid of him. Kill him. Throw him out. Why is he still here? The kids who had never even looked at me before now had opinions about whether I deserved to breathe. The quiet ones who had ignored me for 3 years suddenly had voices. I heard my own name used like a swear, and I finally looked up, past the kicks, past the mouths, at the thing that had caused it. She was still smiling. She was smiling the exact same way she had smiled when she called me baggage. She had not moved a finger. She had not needed to. She had read my mind, choked the one person who defended me, and let 40 children do the rest. I hated her. I want to be careful with that word, because I have used it wrong before. I mean, I hated her the way a body hates what is trying to kill it. I hated her cells. I hated her teeth. I hated the specific arrangement of her face that made her beautiful, because beautiful is what let her get away with it. A black circle opened under my feet. Magic. Divine. Instant. The floor I was lying on became a hole. I could hear the goddess say something about sending me somewhere fitting for my rank, and I could hear the class laugh, and I could see Kamisaka still on her knees in Senma's arms, her eyes unfocused, and I understood in that last second that I was never coming back to these people as the same person. I took my last breath in that world, and I spent it on them. Drop dead, I shouted. You garbage scum. The circle swallowed me, black. I don't know how long I was out. I woke up on my back, on stone, in air that smelled like rust and melted rock. It took me a full minute to remember my own name. It took another minute to understand that the wet sounds I was hearing were not water. I sat up slowly. My body hurt in places that had nothing to do with Kisugawa's foot. My eyes adjusted. Stone walls, stone floor, a ceiling so far up I couldn't see it, a corridor on one side and a wall on the other. No windows, no light source I could identify, no door behind me, no door in front, no door anywhere. And then the wet sound changed direction. Something enormous moved in the dark. I heard scales. I heard breath. I heard it the way you hear a train before you see it. The dark at the end of the corridor bulged and moved, and then a head came forward into the faint glow, and I stopped breathing on purpose, because my body was smarter than I was. It was a snake, not a snake, a hydra. I knew the word from every fantasy novel I had ever read, and seeing one in a novel is not the same as seeing one 6 meters from your shoes. Its scales dripped. Wherever a drop fell, the stone under it hissed and sank like wet sugar. The floor between us had little circular craters. Its breath smelled like a hospital and a battery at the same time, and I had rank F and a skill called None, and nothing in my hands, and nowhere to run. I turned and sprinted anyway. I made it 4 steps before the wall reminded me it was there. The corridor dead-ended. There was exactly one way out of that chamber, and the hydra was standing in it. I turned back. It was closer. It opened its mouth. A cloud of purple gas came out of it, thick as soup, and rolled across the floor toward my feet. I did not have time to think. My body thought for me. I sucked in the worst breath of my life. The poison went into my throat, and it was like swallowing a mouthful of needles on fire. My eyes tried to close on their own. My lungs locked. I fell onto my hands and knees on stone that was already starting to melt, and I made a noise I am not going to describe, and every part of me that was not in agony was furious. I was furious with her, the goddess, the smile that had picked me out of 40 on purpose. I was furious with Kisugawa, with the 38, with the whole clean white room that had agreed I was less than baggage. I was going to die on a melting floor, and the last thing any of them would remember of me was a skill called None. And in the middle of all of that, underneath the pain, there was a voice. It was not hers. It was not mine. It did not feel like a voice so much as a door opening somewhere behind my eyes. It said, very simply, that my skill could evolve, that None could become non-toxic, and it asked, without pressure, without explanation, whether I accepted. Yes, I said, in my head, out loud, in every way a person can say a word. Yes, yes. The pain stopped, not faded, stopped, like a light going off. 1 second my lungs were full of acid, and the next second they were just full of air. Bad air, ugly air, but air. My throat opened, my eyes opened. I took a breath deep enough to feel my ribs move, and the purple gas curled around my face and did absolutely nothing. I said the words in my head, status expansion. The screen opened in front of me like I had always had it. Name, Matsushiro Saiga. Level 1. Skill, none. Skill, non-toxic. 2 skills now, none and its first child. The nothing that the goddess had laughed at had just opened its mouth and eaten a poison that melts stone. I almost laughed. I think I did laugh. A small, cracked, wrong sound. I looked up at the hydra through air that should have killed me, and I realized something the goddess had not wanted me to realize. None was not empty. None was a door. And she knew. Of course she knew. That was why she had smiled. The hydra hissed. It had seen the poison fail. It did not understand, but it did not need to, because it was a hydra and it had a tail. The tail came in from the side like a truck. It hit me directly. I flew. I hit stone. I felt something inside me do the wrong thing. Ribs, maybe. Spine, maybe. Something. The pain that came after the poison was different. Bigger, thicker. It wanted to shut me off. And the voice came back, none too unharmed. Do I accept? Yes, I whispered. Into the stone, into the blood. Yes. The pain stopped a second time. My ribs clicked back into place. My back straightened. I stood up, and the part of the wall I had cracked with my body was still cracked. But I was not. Every bruise, every cut, every wrong thing the tail had done to my spine, gone. Like the hydra had hit a photograph of me instead. I stared at my hands. I flexed them. I felt nothing wrong anywhere. The hydra tried the tail again. I watched it come in. I did not move. It struck me across the chest, and I felt it the way you feel a hand pat your shoulder. Poison, nothing. Strength, nothing. The 2 weapons it had were the 2 things I no longer had to care about, and I started to smile. It was a small, bad, ugly smile. I could feel it changing my face into something I had never worn. I walked toward the hydra. I want to be honest about what happened next, because a part of me is still a little surprised I did it. I had no sword, no knife, no teacher in the room. What I had was a stomach, and the memory of every web novel I had ever read, and the specific knowledge that my body could no longer be injured or poisoned. The hydra could not kill me. I could still kill the hydra, so I did. I will not describe it in detail. I want to keep that for myself. I will only say that when it was done, there was nothing left of the hydra in the corridor. It had been a wall, now it was not. The craters in the floor were already cooling. The air was still hospital and battery, but it was just smell now, not weapon. The smoke where it had stood drifted upward and vanished into a ceiling I still could not see. I stood there in the dark with my hands on my knees, and I breathed for a long time. I was in the bottom of a dungeon. I did not know which one. I did not know how many floors were above me. I did not have an ally, or a weapon, or a map, or anything that resembled a plan. I had rank F. I had a skill called none. I had a skill called non-toxic. I had a skill called unharmed. I had no idea what the voice was or where it came from, and I had the very strong feeling that the woman in the white space had not mentioned any of this on purpose. She was still up there, wherever up was. She was still smiling that smile at 39 other kids who had agreed I was garbage. She thought I was dead. She had every reason to think so. I said it out loud because I needed to hear it come out of my mouth. I am going to climb out of here. I am going to find her, and I am going to make her stop smiling. The dark did not answer. It did not need to. I took one step toward the corridor that did not end in a wall, and then I took another, and the boy in class 1E, who had stood there with a name tag over his head that said less than baggage, was a little farther behind me with every step. I had 2 nullifications and a stomach full of something no hero in this world would have eaten. I had an idea I could not prove yet, that the goddess had not made a mistake at all, that she had picked me, that the thing she had called none had scared her. I walked deeper into the dungeon. I was smiling too. I walked for maybe a minute before I noticed the chest. It was sitting against the far wall of the Hydra's chamber, half hidden behind a pillar I had walked past on the way to dying. Wooden, bound in black iron, lid slightly cracked, no dust on top. A chest in the deepest pit of a dungeon, clean enough to be new, in a room nothing had visited in centuries. I stood and looked at it for a while. First thought, trap. Second thought, a chest could not possibly be a worse idea than the last 10 minutes of my life. Third thought, I no longer had a body that could be poisoned or broken, and if the chest wanted to try something, it could try. I walked over. I opened it. 2 things inside. A sword, hilt up, black leather grip wrapped tight. The blade under it was dark, almost purple in the low light. A pattern like old veins running along the flat. It looked heavy. It looked expensive. It looked like it had killed people. Next to it, folded, A cloak. Dark fabric so deep it seemed to drink what little light there was. A hood. A clasp shaped like bone. Both items sat there, the way something sits when it knows it belongs to you. I reached for the sword. Before my fingers touched the hilt, it spoke. "Well now," it said. "Look at you." I jerked my hand back. Nobody was there. My own voice in my head. I thought for half a second, and then no, because the voice had a different weight than my thoughts. It was amused. It was old. It was, more than anything, curious. "I am," it said, "the cursed sword, Seven Fortunes' sword. Every person who touched me before you died. Their souls are inside me now. I am, you might say, picky." I stared at the blade. It looked, for a sword, perfectly pleased with itself. "Your skill," it went on, "interests me. What is it called? None. An empty slot? I watched the hydra try to kill you for the last hour. You are the first thing I have ever seen eat one." I laughed. I found my voice. "What are you?" I said out loud to a sword. It laughed, a sound like fingernails down a chalkboard, finding it funny. "I was," it said, "a swordsmith, a long time ago, in a country that does not exist anymore. I made blades that killed kings. I poisoned them with my own blood and with the blood of things worse, and eventually I made a sword that killed me. The sword kept me. Here I am. Here you are." My eyes went to the veins in the blade. The hydra's poison smell was still in the air. "The poison," I said. "Yes," said the sword. "Sweet of you to notice." The hydra's stone-melting breath came from me. This whole room was built around my curse, a long time ago, to contain it. The thing that grew down here grew out of me and out of the cloak next to me. We are, in a way, its parents. "Cheeky of you to eat our child." I looked at the cloak. "Night cloak," said the sword. "Strangles whoever wears it. The Seven Fortunes strangled whoever held it. We would have killed you in the first 30 seconds if you were any other person on this planet. But you," it said, "are the first person in history whose skill is nothing. Curses are a kind of poison, a subtler kind. The skill they laughed at, the one that made a god giggle, does not care. Poison, curse, mind rot. None of it touches you. There is no sword in this dungeon you cannot hold. There is no cloak you cannot wear. There is no curse on this planet you cannot walk through like mist." I pulled the sword out of the chest. It was weight, but not the bad kind. It sat in my hand, like it had been measured for it. "Mine," said my hand, before my head caught up. Nothing hurt. No curse took my skin off. No voice crawled into my head to take the wheel. The sword hummed under my palm. A cat deciding I was acceptable. "Evolve it," the sword said. "Now, push it. Your skill is not a skill, boy. It is a door. Push." The voice from earlier, the one that had offered non-toxic and then unharmed, came back the moment the sword said the word evolve, like it had been waiting politely in the wings. "None to void," it said. "Do I accept? Void." I did not know what void meant, and I did not care. I said yes the way I had said yes the 2 times before. Full throat, no hesitation, because the alternative was to go back to being the boy with a name tag that said less than baggage. Accepted. The sword shivered in my grip. "Point at something," it said. "The wall, for example. Reach. Pull." I aimed the blade at the chamber wall. I did not swing. I did not channel anything I understood. I just reached with the feeling the sword had given me, a scissor cut at the edge of the world, and I told the wall I did not want it there anymore. A piece of the wall stopped existing. Not a crater, not a hole, a clean absence, about the size of a dinner plate, perfectly round, nothing inside it. No rubble, no powder. The stone on either side was smooth, as if shaped around emptiness from the beginning. There was not even a sound. The sword howled in my head, the happiest sound I had ever heard something make. "Oh," it said. "Oh, you wonderful child. Stone is easy. Stone is a thing. A god is a thing. A god is just a larger thing. Scale is the only variable. You. Absolute. Beautiful. Creature." I looked at the dinner plate-shaped piece of nothing in the wall. I felt it happen to my face. Not a smile, not yet. Something smaller and colder. The look of a man who has just seen the tool that fits the job. I spoke to the sword out loud, because I needed the sound of my own mouth this time. "Hey," I said, "Seven Fortunes' sword." "Yes." "Can I said slowly. "Can I kill a god with this?" The sword was quiet for the length of a breath. Then it made a noise that was not a laugh. It was a decision. "With this," it said, "and with you, and with time. Yes." I closed my eyes. In the white space, she had kept smiling the whole time she decided I was garbage. The smile had not moved. The smile had not even pretended to care. The smile was the whole crime. I opened my eyes. "I am going to kill her," I said, out loud. To the sword, to the chamber, to whatever listened in dungeons. The sword laughed again, but this time it was not mocking. It was delighted. It was the way a dog laughs when you pick up the leash. "A god-killing journey," it said. "Oh my, count me in. Count me all the way in. I have been bored for 1,000 years, boy. You will do." I picked up the night cloak. I put it on. The hood fell over my hair. The clasp closed on its own, soft. Around the throat it should have crushed. The cloak settled on my shoulders, as if it had been looking for shoulders exactly this size. I slid the sword into a loop on my hip that had appeared there. Nothing strangled me. Nothing melted me. The two cursed objects of the deepest pit of this dungeon sat on my body as if they had never been cursed at all. I was not a high school kid in a corridor anymore. I did not know what I was yet, but I was not that. "All right," said the sword. "Now, we talk, because you need to know where you are and what you are in before you go anywhere. This place," it said, "is not a dungeon. It is one of 7, the Labyrinth of Wrath, one of the 7 hells, the highest difficulty dungeons this world produces. The hydra you ate is, by the rulebook of this place, S rank. Normal A rank heroes send parties of 6 in and bury most of them. The bottom floor, where you are sitting, is 250 floors below the sky. 250 floors of monsters designed to kill the kinds of children your goddess crowned." 250, I said. 250, it said. The joke is thick. I laughed. A small, bad, cracked sound. The first laugh I had really had since I got there. "Open your status," it said. "Properly this time. Look at what you have." I called the status window the way I had called it in front of the hydra. It opened in front of me, clean as a page. Level 142. I read that number 3 times before I believed it. Level 142. I had been level 1 2 hours ago. The hydra, apparently, had been worth more than my entire life up to this point. The sword read my face. "The meat," it said, gently. "Yes, we are getting to that." Every stat had scaled with me. Fat bonuses, hanging off attack, and defense from the sword and the cloak. I skipped past the detail. The shape of the news was what mattered. My body, in this corridor, was stronger than any instructor from my old life could have measured. In 2 hours, from rank F. The goddess did not know this. The goddess, I thought, was wrong. Not about me being rank F, about what rank F meant. 2 slots, said the sword. At level 1, skill. None has 2 slots. 2 evolved skills can be active at once. You have picked up 4 so far. Non-toxic, unharmed, void, and ignore you unlocked without noticing. Each skill costs mana. Constant skills drain while they are worn. Trigger skills cost a lump when you pull them. Void is expensive. Void is the kind of skill you save for things you want to stop being a thing. I thought about that. I set my loadout the way the sword told me to set it. Non-toxic, constant, because this dungeon was soaked in poison. Ignore, constant, because I had no offense yet, and being unseen was cheaper than being feared. Void, I left off the active list, not forgotten, kept in reserve, a trump. Good boy, said the sword. Now, the other matter. What other matter? I said. The contract, said the sword. We should make one. It explained. The terms were narrow. First, it would answer any question I asked, truthfully, within the limits of what it knew. No lying. Second, it would not take over my body under any circumstance, including ones where I begged for it in a bad moment. In exchange, I would keep it at my side until this business of mine was finished. I did not trust the sword. A thing that consumed its own maker was not a thing you trusted. But the 2 terms it offered were exactly the 2 terms I would have asked for. A sword that cannot lie to me and cannot take me over is a sword I can work with. All right, I said. Let us make the contract. Something in the air between us tightened. Not a glow, not a sound. A clicking into place, the way a lock feels when the right key turns it. Good, said the sword. Good. Now you definitely cannot get rid of me. I am very hard to return. I snorted. The first thing I had done in my new life, apparently, was sign a pet adoption form written by the pet. I stood up. Nothing about me hurt. The sword was at my hip, humming. The cloak sat on my shoulders as if it weighed nothing. I adjusted the hood. Move, said the sword. I feel something in the next corridor. Let us see what your ignore does. I stepped out of the Hydra's chamber for the first time. The corridor opened into a long hall with a stone bridge across it, because of course it did. Ignore settled over me the second I activated it. Not invisibility, more like my shape stopped being important to the world. My footsteps stopped making sense to my ears. I was there. I was walking. The floor was not interested in reporting it. Halfway across the bridge, I saw it. It was standing on a rock, like a rooster god had stretched too tall, chicken-shaped in a way I did not appreciate, as tall as me, feathers black and oil-colored. Its eyes rolled toward me and slid right off, like water trying to stick to glass. Cockatrice, said the sword, cheerfully. A rank. Petrifies with a look. Normally wipes a 3-man party, if you are unlucky. Ignore held. The cockatrice went back to pecking at something dead on the rock. I walked up to it, slowly. The bird did not register me. I was not in its story. I put the sword against the base of its neck. I pushed. The blade went in like it had been invited. I felt the sword's poison cross from my grip into the creature, a pulse of something green that did not belong in the real world. The cockatrice made one small, confused sound. Then it was not a cockatrice anymore. It was a weight on the end of my blade. Then it was a weight on the ground. Beautifully done, said the sword. Oh, clean. A rank F boy just killed an A rank monster without waking it up. I wish the goddess could have seen. I did too. And then the sword said something else. Eat it said. I did not move. It is fresh, the sword said. Will not stay fresh. Soul is still in the meat. Per our contract, I can promise you two things. It will not harm you, and it will help you. Raw monster meat was not on the list of things I had expected to do with my mouth today, or, frankly, ever. I told the sword so. The sword laughed. Then it said, calmly, remember our contract. I am not allowed to give advice that harms you. I am telling you to eat. Think about what that means. I thought about what that meant. I knelt. I did the thing I was not going to describe. I kept it short. I kept my eyes on the stone floor more than the thing I was doing. For a second, the meat registered on my tongue as unexpectedly good. The kind of good that makes you angry at how good it is, because it is coming from a place it has no business being good from. I noted it. I moved on. When it was done, the cockatrice was not a body. There was a pile of black feathers. There was nothing else. I sat back on my heels. My body felt warm, not tired, warm. The warmth of something that had eaten a proper meal for the first time in a long time. I called the status window because I could feel it had changed. Level 172, 30 levels from one bird. Every stat had scaled with me. The sword hummed, amused. Check your skill list, it said. The fun part. Slide to the bottom. I slid. 2 new entries sat under void and ignore. One was called slots +1. The other was called poison breath. The sword explained gently. In this world, getting a new skill is the hardest thing anyone does with their life. Adventurers train for decades for one skill. Some train for decades and get nothing. A gifted, blessed, chosen person picks up one skill in a career. You just got 2 from one bird in 10 seconds. The meat of a magic creature carries the creature's essence, and a body willing to digest that essence digests it all. Experience, stats, and sometimes skill. I looked at the word slots +1. I understood what it did before the sword finished the sentence. My head got a little quieter. I could run 3 skills at once now, not 2. My combat kit had just doubled. And, said the sword, here is the ugly, beautiful part. You are the only person in this world who can do this. Every other human who puts monster meat in their mouth dies. It is poison. It is distilled curse. Only your little non-toxic, which sits there costing you almost nothing, lets you swallow it without falling over. Do you see, boy? Do you see what the goddess gave you? Do you see what she threw away? I did see. The verdict she had announced in the white space, the one the 38 had agreed with out loud, had been wrong in a very specific way. Not a little wrong. Structurally wrong. Rank F was not the worst rank. Rank F was the one that could eat every other rank and grow. The system she ran had one loophole, and it was me. And she had thrown the loophole into the pit, where the best meat in the world was waiting. Something in me, somewhere I did not usually check, laughed. I stood. I pulled the hood a little lower. My body fit in my own skin differently now. Not the body I had walked into the white space with. Something new, wearing my name. Company, said the sword. Quickly. Ahead. 2 of something coming down the corridor. Let us see what poison breath does, boy. Let us see what your new mouth can do. I looked down the hall. In the dark. A long way off. I could hear footsteps that were not feet. I could hear the wet drag of something that was not skin. I could smell something old and wrong on the air. I put one hand on the hilt of the 7 Fortunes sword. I kept the other hand loose. I was going to climb out. I was going to find her. I was going to make her stop smiling. That was still the plan. It was a plan with 250 floors of homework on top of it. Fine. I was level 172, an hour into being a person the goddess thought was dead. I had a cursed sword with opinions, a cloak that should have killed me, a mouth that could now breathe poison, 4 skills, 3 slots, and the specific knowledge that nothing in this world was going to be able to stop me from growing. I took a step forward into the corridor. The dark did not argue. Neither did I. I walked maybe 20 paces before the sword told me to stop walking. Behind, it said. Fast. Very fast. I do not like the shape of it. I held still. Ignore was still on. My shape was supposed to be off the world's to-do list. The thing behind me was supposed to not notice me. It noticed me. I heard it before I saw it. Leather. Wind. A high, thin chirp that was not a voice so much as a question. The chirp bounced off the wall behind my head and came back through my ear, and I understood in one breath that ignore did not work on this thing because this thing was not using eyes. It was pinging. Behind, said the sword. 2 breaths. 1. I turned. A A bat. Of course a bat. Black wings. A body the size of a large dog. Ears you could fold a letter inside. It did not look at me because it did not have to look at me. Its mouth opened and it pinged again, and the sound came back and told it exactly where to hit. It hit. I felt the impact across my shoulder, sharp and twisting, and I did not feel pain because I had switched on a thing called no pain a second before it landed. Pain stopped being information. The damage kept happening, but it stopped being loud, and my brain could do what my brain was actually good at. Think in the quiet. Sound, I said, out loud. It uses sound. Very good, said the sword, in the exasperated tone of a tutor who wanted me to catch up faster. I let the bat arc back for another pass. I did not reach for the sword. I did not try to run. I set my feet. I opened my mouth, and I breathed. Poison breath was new, still raw on my tongue, still strange to aim. I let it come. A cloud of thick purple smoke rolled out of me into the air around me. The same stone-eating reek the hydra had used to kill me an hour ago. The same curse the sword at my hip had made the hydra out of in the first place. I sent the cloud everywhere, left, right, up. I painted the corridor with it. The bat came in on its next ping. It entered the cloud at top speed. Its wings stuttered. Its ears folded back. Its whole fast little body hiccuped in midair and fell out of the shape of flying. Paralysis, said the sword warmly, not death. My poison paralyzes those with any resistance and kills those without. This one has resistance. It is yours to finish. I finished it. One stab, clean, under the chin, where the scales stopped. The bat dropped onto the stone and twitched once and then did not twitch again. Eat, said the sword. I did not argue this time. I knelt. I did what I did not describe last time, and I kept it short. The meat was good again, not the way stolen candy is good, but the way a proper meal is good when you have forgotten what a proper meal tastes like. When it was done, the bat was a pile of leather and a few small bones. My status clicked. A new row appeared at the bottom. Echolocation. The sword read out of the air. Pleased. Oh, very nice. Pup, you just learned to see in the dark with your ears. I tested it without moving. The skill was not an instruction, it was a sense. I closed my eyes, on purpose, and the corridor did not go black. It became shape, stone on 3 sides, a bend ahead, the rustle of water 2 halls over, the bat's bones on the floor, still warm. I was hearing the geometry of the dungeon through my own skull. Sword, I said, without opening my eyes. There are 3 chests in this room. The sword laughed. Oh, are there? Oh, show me. I could see them in my ears. One tucked behind a broken column to my left. One further down, flush to the wall, too clean. One at the far corner, the heaviest of the 3, reading hollow in a way a chest should not read. I opened my eyes and I walked to the first. Careful, said the sword. Dungeons do not leave presents for free. Dungeons leave bait. The soul they are trying to cash in right now is yours. Understood, I said. I lifted the lid. Inside, cradled in a dark cloth, was a revolver. Black-bodied, 6 chambers, a short, thick barrel, the kind of thing that had no business existing in a world with magic swords. Ornate scrollwork along the frame, not decorative. A containment pattern. The thing breathed out a little hum of wrong I recognized from the sword at my hip and the cloak at my shoulders. Oh, said the sword. And this time, the voice was the way you might say the name of an old dog. Lucky gun, you beautiful little horror. Yours? I said. Of course mine, said the sword, smug. I made every curse that lives in this dungeon, boy. Everyone. This one is the lucky gun. Every shot hits. There is not a miss in it. The bullet is not guided. The target is pulled. You would aim into the ceiling and shoot someone on the floor. I waited. Every weapon in this place had a bite. And the sword went on, cheerful. After each shot, the wielder is politely compelled to put the next shot into themselves. Temple, heart, dealer's choice. Every past owner who fired it died of the second pull. The gun does not care that you wanted to fire twice. The gun only cares that you pulled once. I looked at the revolver. I thought about what I had. Non-toxic, I said. Yes, said the sword, and void under it. The little skill the goddess laughed at nullifies a compulsion as easily as a poison, because to this skill, a compulsion is a poison. The lucky gun in a normal hand is a one-shot execution device. The lucky gun in your hand is a weapon that always hits and never bites back. I picked it up. It sat in my palm like it had been made for the palm. The scrollwork warmed, then went quiet, the way something dangerous goes quiet when it decides not to bother. I broke the cylinder, checked the chambers, snapped it closed. Empty. A hole where bullets were supposed to go. I holstered it. A loop appeared on my belt for it the same way the sword's loop had appeared. The dungeon was redesigning my outfit to match the arsenal. I turned to the second chest. My echolocation pulsed. Mimic, said the sword before I got close. Thing with teeth pretending to be a thing with treasure. Do not open. We will come back when we are hungrier. I nodded. One later, I walked to the third. The third chest was heavier in my ears than a chest should be. It had a shape inside it that was not a shape. The lid was crooked. The whole thing was holding its breath. "Ambush," said the sword, delighted. "Open it." I drew the lucky gun. I pointed it at the center of the chest. I did not load it the normal way. I loaded it with the one skill I had been saving for exactly this kind of problem. Self-absorbed. A compulsion round. It would turn whatever was inside that chest from a thing that wanted to eat me into a thing that wanted to please me. I pulled the trigger. The gun did not make a sound I expected. It made a clean, short crack, precise, almost polite. The bullet did not fly toward the chest. The chest came to meet the bullet. That was what always hits looked like, up close. Physics with its manners fixed. The chest came apart. Inside was not a chest. Inside was a puddle the size of a bathtub, matte black, surface like wet glass, with no eyes and no mouth, a black ooze. The round went into it and through it and then did not come out. Because compulsion does not exit a body, compulsion takes up residence. The puddle quivered. Then the puddle stood up. Then the puddle shrank. It kept shrinking until it was a neat fist-sized blob sitting on the stone, gleaming, expectant, waiting to be told what to do. Its surface rippled once in a way I read, without being told, as hello. "Oh," said the sword, very satisfied. "Oh, we have a pet." "3 things," said the sword. "Write this down in whatever you use for a brain. Black ooze stores, digests, and mimics. It can hold anything inside itself with no weight and no limit. It can digest anything, and anything it digests goes into whatever it is currently shaped like as a permanent upgrade. And it can look like anything, any surface, any object, any texture." I looked at the blob. The blob looked back without eyes. "Mimic my coat," I said. The blob climbed my leg. It was not cold. It was not warm. It was the temperature of a decision. It flowed up my side and up my back and settled across the night cloak in a thin second skin, matte black on matte black, invisible once it was on. The cloak weighed the same. It looked the same. It felt underneath, alive. "Every tear in this coat will close," said the sword. "Every burn will unburn. The cloth is still cursed. The skin over it is still ooze. You now have armor that heals." I thought about it. "Do the gun," I said. "Do the sword." "No," said the sword, immediately. "Bad idea. If the ooze wears us, the curse in us dilutes. Our teeth go soft. The gun stops always hitting. I stop erasing. Keep us cursed, pup. Keep us pure. Use the ooze for the things you want healed, not for the things you want sharp." I nodded. It was a clean answer. The kind of answer that, in my old life, nobody had ever given me for free. "All right," I said, to the ooze. "Rest. You have work coming." The blob settled inside the coat and went quiet. I walked. I did not get far. Echolocation pinged 3 soft returns at once in 3 directions. A cockatrice at the end of the hall, idling on a rock, preening. A second sound bat, higher up, hanging from the ceiling, asleepish. And further, around a bend, a slower, heavier thing with a hide that read like a wall on the scan. Something bovine. Steel bull, the sword supplied. The moment I stopped walking. 3 enemies, 3 jobs for the kit. I took a breath. I picked up mute, a little evolution of ignore I had not yet bothered to test. It settled over the gun, and the gun went silent inside my idea of it. I drew, I sighted, I squeezed. The cockatrice on the far rock had no time to turn its head. There was no crack. There was no ping. There was a small red hole where its eye had been, and then a body on the rock where a bird had just been standing. The lucky gun had done what lucky guns do. From 50 paces, through a twist in the corridor, around a pillar, with a silencer the world did not know was on. "Beautifully done," said the sword again. He snipes. The sound bat woke at the body drop it should not have heard. I fired without aiming. The bullet went sideways on purpose, clipped the wall, bounced, clipped the ceiling, bounced again, and caught the bat in the wing as it began to ping. The always hits did not care about geometry. The bat corrected its flight. I fired a second time. The second shot found the side of its head, and the bat stopped being a shape in the air, too. Around the bend, the steel bull heard me now and came. It came the way something heavy comes. Stone shook under its hooves. Its body was plated in a gray-black hide that read, even to my ears, as wall. I had 30 seconds before it was in my lap. I did the thing I had been building towards since I opened the first chest. I told the black ooze inside my coat to take the sword's poison. The blob rippled. A tiny lobe of it climbed my arm, found the sword at my hip, touched the blade, and drank a thread of the green that lived there. The poison went into the ooze, and the ooze carried it down my sleeve and into the gun. The cylinder clicked. A single chambered round now sat there that had not been there a heartbeat before, its jacket wet and dark, and breathing the same hospital battery stink the hydra had breathed on me at level 1. "Custom," said the sword, with an unfair amount of feeling. "Oh, custom. Pup, you just learned to make bullets." The steel bull rounded the corner. I aimed at the one part of it that was not wall, its eye. I fired. The bullet went where bullets went out of this gun, through the eye, into the brain, through the brain, and out the other side, leaving a small purple flower of hydra poison blooming inside the skull. The bull did not die. The bull froze, its hooves locked mid-step, its huge head tipped slightly to the side. I walked up to its face, and I slid the sword between two plates under its jaw, and I gave the sword a full dose of itself to finish what the bullet had started. The bull went down like a dropped building. It was not done working, though. "Eat it," said the sword, delighted. "Not you, for once. Ooze. Let the pet eat." The black ooze poured off the coat in a wave. It engulfed the steel bull the way a wet blanket engulfs a fire. I watched the bull vanish piece by piece into the black surface without a single sound. When the wave came back, the ooze was larger, then smaller, then exactly the fist-sized blob it had been, climbing back up my leg. A number floated in my status where the coat's defense used to be. The number had changed, plus 1500. I stopped walking on purpose, and I looked at the number. "Digestion," said the sword, in the tone a parent uses to explain a very important trick. Whatever the ooze eats becomes a permanent stat upgrade to whatever the ooze is currently mimicking. It is wearing your coat. It just ate a steel bull. Your coat now has, roughly, a steel bull's worth of defense on top of everything else. Every kill from here is an upgrade to whatever this pet is pretending to be, for as long as you keep feeding it. I did the math once, and then I did not need to do it again. Every monster I killed made my armor better. Every monster I killed made me stronger. Every monster I killed was now a bullet, and a skill, and a level, and a plating upgrade, stacked. The loophole the goddess had thrown into the pit kept getting wider. I did not laugh this time. The sound in my chest was closer to a hum, cold, steady, the shape of a plan settling into its track. I stood in a corridor at the bottom of the deepest dungeon on the planet, and I had 4 evolutions of a skill called Nothing. A cursed sword on my hip, a cursed cloak that healed itself, a cursed revolver that could not miss, a living pet that stored and made and ate, a throat that could breathe poison, an ear that could see, a coat that was thicker by a dead bull, and a level the goddess would have laughed at an hour ago and would not have laughed at now. I had been at level 1 less than baggage. I was no longer at level 1. I walked forward. The corridor opened on a room I could already hear the shape of in my ears. 3 soft presences in it, none of them paying attention, all of them about to. The sword was humming again, not a warning, a work song. "Well, pup," it said, "let us go to the market." I put my hand on the gun and I left my other hand loose. I had climbing to do. The room I had been hearing in my ears turned out to be empty. 3 soft presences on the scan resolved once I stepped inside into 2 sleeping lizards and something small and furred I did not need. Echolocation swept past them and kept going, mapping the chamber out for me like ink filling a shape. Walls, a high ceiling, one opening ahead, one behind me, and nothing anywhere on any wall that looked like a way up. I stopped in the middle of the room and I ran the sweep again, slower. I made echolocation chew on the geometry. I pushed it into every seam. I asked the room, politely, whether I had missed a shaft, a vent, a lift, an old adventurer's climb, a rope hole, anything. The room said no. "There is no staircase going up," I said out loud, because some things you have to hear in your own voice to believe. The sword, at my hip, made a small noise somewhere between a yawn and an apology. "Oh," it said. "Right, I forgot to mention. Dungeons of this class are one way until you clear them. Down only. Up only when the master falls. The goddess does love her one-way doors." I thought about taking the sword off my hip and putting it in the black ooze and never speaking to it again. I did not. I drew the lucky gun instead, and I emptied 3 rounds into the ceiling above me. The rounds did what rounds out of this gun did. They hit exactly where I had wanted them to hit, and the ceiling, at each of those points, did not care. No dust, no crack, not even a scuff. The stone in this place was not stone. It was something the goddess had signed her name on before she laid it down. "Divine grade," said the sword, amused. "You will not be shooting your way out of the floor, pup, or the wall, or the ceiling. Not this floor, not any floor, not until you walk the whole length of her very long joke and kick open the last door at the bottom." "So down then?" I said. "Down," said the sword, but carefully. Dungeon stairs are dungeon rooms in their own right. Traps, transfer inscriptions, pits. The stairs here like to send climbers to places the climbers did not want to go. "You forgot to tell me that too," I said. "I'm telling you now," said the sword. with the kind of pride a bad parent takes in arriving at the hospital after the birth. I went to the stairs. They were wide and old and carved out of the same signed stone as everything else, and I stepped onto the first one with my gun in one hand and my other hand loose. The second stair, the third, the fourth. On the fifth stair, the world went black, not dark, black. The kind of black that is a shape moving through you, briefly, and setting you down somewhere you did not walk to. My inner ear tipped. My stomach caught up a half-second late. Echolocation, which had been painting the staircase for me, went silent for one long heartbeat and then came back, screaming. I was in a hall. I was not alone. The hall was enormous. My ping went out and came back and went out again, and the returns kept arriving, layer after layer after layer, each one a new body, not a body, bodies, dozens. Then the dozens resolved into hundreds. Then the hundreds resolved into more. The floor of the hall was shapes, segmented, armored, low, moving, coming. Death Scorpion, the sword said, and for the first time in a long while, it said it without any theater in its voice. A lot of Death Scorpion. This is what they call a monster house pup, a room that exists to kill whatever the transfer trap drops into it. Their stingers are poison that put an ancient dragon down in one shot. Their claws cut iron like paper, and there are, at a rough count, a great deal more of them than you have bullets. My echolocation finished its sweep. The count it gave me was not a number a man is supposed to have to think about alone. They swarmed from every angle, low, fast, their armor clicking against itself and against the stone, a dry, rushing wave of legs. I had a second, maybe two. Running would show them my back, and my back was not armored enough for that many stingers. Standing still would turn me into a hill they climbed. I went through the skill list in my head, the way a man goes through a drawer he has rearranged exactly for this. No mishap, I said. It was a skill I had picked up somewhere in the last few kills and had not yet found a use for. A small, ugly skill. A skill that said, in plain translation, nothing bad happens to me in a space I declare. A bad skill for fighting, a bad skill for moving, an impossible skill for running, because the moment you stepped out of the space stopped being yours. A perfect skill for standing still. I dropped my weight onto a single square of stone under my feet. I fed the black ooze a thought, and the ooze fed me a bullet, and the bullet in the gun now was not a bullet anymore. It was a declaration. I pointed the lucky gun between my own boots. I fired. The round went into the stone. It did not come back out. The skill went in with it and stayed. The floor under me, in a small circle about the size of a dinner table, stopped being floor. It became a rule. The first scorpion to reach the edge of the rule did not cross it. It did not bounce. It did not freeze. It simply could not arrive. Its legs kept working. Its body kept trying. The space said no. The scorpion, confused the way only a thing that has never met a word before can be confused, turned sideways and tried again. And again, the space said no. A second scorpion piled up behind it. A third, a 10th. A wave of black armor built itself against the invisible line and could not, at any point, place a single claw inside the circle around my feet. Safe zone, said the sword, delighted in a way I had started to recognize as the sound it made when I had done something it had not expected. Oh, pup. You fired it into the ground. You put the rule in the rock. That is not how anyone uses that skill. That is how you should have always used that skill. Beautiful, beautiful. I did not answer. I worked. The lucky gun does not miss. I lifted it and I picked the nearest scorpion and I put a round through the soft seam under its jaw. It folded. I picked the next. I put a round through the same seam. It folded. I picked the next. The black ooze inside my coat was drinking the last kill the way it had drunk the steel bull, except this time I was not letting it grow the coat. I was letting it make more bullets. Every scorpion I dropped was fuel. Every drop of fuel was another chambered round. The cylinder turned. The hammer fell. Another seam found. Another scorpion folded. Mute was on the gun. The hall stayed quiet. The only sounds were the clicking of armor and the soft, wet noise of the ooze working. I do not know how long it lasted. There was no light in that hall that changed. There was no hunger clock in my body that I trusted. There was only the wave breaking against the rule at my feet, and the rule holding, and my arm doing the one small job it had. Lift, sight, squeeze, fold, lift, sight, squeeze, fold. My shoulder went stiff. My shoulder stopped being stiff and started being numb. My mana dipped and came back and dipped and came back. The black ooze kept the pipeline open. The sword, once in a while, told me I had missed something, which was a joke because the gun did not miss. Somewhere around the middle of the work, I realized I was using the goddess to carry me, not her help, her face, her smile, the thing she had called justice. I thought about her and my arm stopped being tired. I thought about her, and the next scorpion found the next seam and folded. Hatred is a terrible fuel. Hatred is the only fuel that lasts this long. The wave against the rule got thinner, then thin, then sparse, then a handful, then 3, then 1, then none. I stood in a circle of clean stone surrounded, to every horizon of my ping, by bodies. Black armor piled against the rule, like driftwood against a jetty. The hall was a field of stopped clocks. I lowered the gun. I let my arm down. I sat, because my legs made the decision for me. My hands were shaking. The rest of me was not. That seemed right. Eat, said the sword, quietly. Then stand up. We are not done. I had the ooze collect. It poured off my coat in that same wet blanket wave and moved through the hall at a speed I had not seen it move before, folding bodies into itself one after another, leaving the stone clean behind it. When it came back, it was heavier and bigger and full. It climbed into my coat and sat there like a satisfied cat. I picked one scorpion out of it, still mostly whole, and I did what I did. I kept it short. The taste surprised me. It was not the hospital battery of the hydra. It was not the gamey wrongness of the bat. It was, of all things, shrimp, shellfish, and salt, and something almost sweet under the armor. I thought for a second of a bowl my grandmother used to make, and then I put that thought somewhere behind a door, because that door was not the door I was standing in front of tonight. The status came up behind my eyes. The nun skill had moved. Level 1, it said, had become level 2. A third slot had opened up beside the 2 I was already running. Somewhere in the list was a new name, Poison Thrust. I turned to the nearest wall. I set the tip of the cursed sword against it, and I fed the skill into the blade. The sword made a noise that was almost a laugh. The tip went into the wall. The wall tried to argue. The wall lost a wedge of itself the size of my fist. Oh, said the sword, very pleased with me. Oh, pup. Now the teeth matched the tongue. Up ahead in the hall, my ping caught something it had glossed past during the work. Shapes on the floor that were not scorpion. Longer, thinner, human. I walked over. There were 4 of them. What was left of 4 of them? Old armor, old bones, older than old. Adventurers. Climbers who had come through the same black flash I had come through, and had not gotten the same lucky combination of skills out the other end. The sword, beside me, sighed in a way I had not heard it sigh before. A real sigh, not theater. Welcome to the monster house, pup, it said. You were not the first visitor. You are just the first one who left. I crouched by the nearest one. Most of it was gone. The armor was the armor of a career, battered and layered and carefully mended for years. I put a hand over where the face had been. I did not know this man. I did not know his name. I did not know whose letter he had been hoping to finish when the floor turned black under him. A thought, an ugly one, arrived in my chest. Souls, I said, out loud, to the sword, because I wanted to hear how it sounded in my voice. No, said the sword, before I had finished the question. Not these. The souls in these bodies left a long time ago. There is nothing in here for you. A fresh corpse, yes. An old one, no. Whatever they were is with her now, one way or another. And the meat they left behind is just meat. I nodded. I was glad it had been an honest answer. I was gladder that the answer was no, because somewhere, quietly, under the shaking and the hatred and the arithmetic, I had decided, without announcing it to myself or to the sword, that I would not be the thing that ate people. Not today. Not out of weakness, and not out of a craving, and not out of cleverness. Monsters were monsters. Men, even dead men, were still men. If I ever ate a human soul in this dungeon, it would not be because I was hungry, and it would not be because the power was convenient. It would be because the soul had, with full knowledge, asked to be eaten, nothing less. I did not tell the sword. I wrote the rule down in the part of me that kept the rules. I moved on. On the third body, I found the knife. It did not look like anything. It looked like a length of rust with a handle, battered and pitted, and closer to scrap than to weapon. I almost left it. The sword at my hip stopped me. That, said the sword, is not a knife. That is a cursed tool. Advanced dismantling, if I am reading it correctly, and I am. Kills whatever wields it who is not already cursed adjacent. You are cursed adjacent, pup. You are, at this point, practically family. Take it. Sorry, friend, I said to the corpse, quietly, and I took it. I had the ooze fetch the other chest I had left behind in the room of 3 chests, a long corridor, and a trap ago. The mimic. The ooze put it in front of me. I put the rusted knife into the seam where its lid had been. The cursed edge opened the mimic like a book. I did what I did, and I kept it short, and the status behind my eyes moved again. Perfect preservation, it said. I understood, without being told, what the skill meant. Every monster I killed from here on could be banked, folded into the ooze, held, eaten later, whenever I needed a level, or a skill, or a drink. The hall at my feet was not a hall anymore. The dungeon was not a dungeon anymore. The goddess's kill box for weak climbers had just become my pantry. I stood in the middle of a field of stopped scorpions, with a cursed gun on my hip, a cursed sword at my other hip, a cursed cloak on my shoulders, a cursed knife in my hand, a cursed pet in my coat, and a rule in my chest about what I would not eat. I had come into this hall a man trying to survive. I was leaving it a man running a farm. Somewhere very far above me, I could feel the goddess not looking. I started walking toward the exit my ping had already found. I walked toward the exit. The hall was quiet in the way that only killed halls are quiet. The ooze was a heavy hum in my coat. The ping kept painting the room ahead of me, clean stone, a corridor mouth, maybe 50 paces away. I was already doing math about how many scorpions I could bank against the next bad afternoon. Then the ping caught something that should not have been there. A pulse, weak, small, not scorpion-shaped. A life signal where there should not have been any life left. I stopped walking. Where? I said, out loud, to the sword. The sword, for once, was not theater. Under the pile, pup, the one against the west wall, near the bottom. Give it another heartbeat and it will not have a heartbeat. I turned. The west wall was a mound of stopped black chitin, reaching almost to my chest. I started lifting. The ooze peeled segments off the top and tucked them into its body as I worked. Armor, armor, armor. Something that was not armor. Skin, pale, long-fingered. A hand. I cleared the rest faster than I wanted to. There was a body under there. A woman. Very much not dead yet and very much almost dead. I will not describe what the scorpions had done to her because I did not look at it for longer than it took to know I did not want to. I had already unclipped the night cloak and dropped it over her. The second my eyes registered the shape of the problem. The cloak covered what needed covering. The ooze flowed out and laid a second thin layer over the rest of her. Out of sight, out of memory. She was an elf. I could see that much. Pointed ears, long hair spilling out from under the hood of the cloak in a wave of pale gold. A face that even half unconscious and half ruined belonged on a coin. Her eyes were open, emerald, unfocused, aware just enough to see me and to smile. "Thank you," she whispered, in a voice made of almost nothing. I froze. She thought I was there to finish her. She thought the shape bending over her in the dark was a merciful killer, and she was thanking him. Something in my chest went very hot and very quiet at the same time. "Oh," said the sword, interested. "Do not be offended, pup. She is being polite." I was offended. I was, if I am being honest, furious. Not at her, at the shape of the joke. I had come down into this dungeon to stop being the thing the goddess said I was. I had set a rule in my chest one chamber ago about what I would not eat, and the first living person I had found since the white space looked up at me out of her own near death and assumed I was the angel of the end and said thank you. I had two clean options in front of me. I could walk away. She would be dead inside a minute. I had the exit already plotted. She would be just another career of armor for the next adventurer, if there ever was one, which there would not be. Or I could eat. The soul was fresh. A high-level elf. The sword was already murmuring. A mage. Look at the mana shape under the skin. Pup. That is a bank being wasted on a corpse. Eat. I looked at her face. I thought about the rule I had just written in my chest. Not out of weakness, not out of craving, not out of cleverness. Unless the soul, with full knowledge, asked. She had not asked, she had thanked. Those were very different verbs, and the fury I had felt a second ago, at her assumption that I was a killer, turned in my hand and became a third option. I could refuse to be what she expected. I could refuse to be what the sword expected. I could refuse to be what the goddess had designed me to be. I could do the thing that negated the first two options at once. I drew the lucky gun. She saw the muzzle. Her eyes closed, peacefully. She still thought I was doing her the favor. I loaded unharmed into the chamber. The skill settled into the bullet, the way it had settled into every other bullet I had built this week. Obedient, exact. I aimed at her chest. I squeezed. Mute held. The gun coughed once, almost politely. The bullet went in. Everything about her that had been wrong stopped being wrong. I was not watching the healing. I was watching her face. The slack went out. The gray went out. Her breath came back in one long, clean draw, like a swimmer breaking surface. Under the ooze's second layer, everything that had been missing was not missing anymore. She opened her eyes. Emerald. Clear now. Focused now. Looking at me. Not at a killer. At me. "Wonderful," said the sword, very softly. "Pup, you just spent a bullet healing a stranger. Do you know how much mana that cost you to do in a single round?" "Shut up," I said, without moving my mouth. I stood up. I turned away. I started walking toward the exit again. I had done the thing. The rule was kept. She was alive. My bill with my own chest was paid. I did not need the rest of it. I had taken 3 steps when I heard her move behind me. Fast. Faster than someone who had been a pile of wrong parts a minute ago had any right to be. She made a small strangled noise, and her footsteps paused. She had realized what she was not wearing under the cloak. I did not turn around. "Dress her," I said, to the ooze in my coat. The ooze understood. It always understood. A sheet peeled off my coat, flowed to her, read her shape in the span of a breath, and closed around her in the plain cut of adventurers' traveling clothes. Shirt, trousers, belt, boots. Done in under 2 seconds. I kept walking. Behind me, she caught her own breath, and then she ran, and then she was in front of me, kneeling. "Savior," she said. She used both hands on my arm, a grip stronger than any grip I had felt since the white space. "Please, allow me to repay you, with my life, if it must be my life. I have nothing else left in me that is worth offering." I tried to pull my arm back. I could not. I was learning in real time, genuinely strong. "I do not want a debt," I said. "Go home. You are alive. Go be alive somewhere that is not this dungeon." She did not move. She did not let go. She looked up at me with 2 clear emerald eyes that had not yet learned, or had perhaps forgotten, how to look away from a person who had done them a kindness. "A lovely problem," the sword murmured, delighted. "Truly, a delightful problem." I tried to go around her. She blocked me. I tried the other side. She blocked me there too. Not aggressively, just always in the way. "Let me follow you," she said. "Please, I will be useful. I will carry things. I will stand between you and the next thing that tries to hurt you. Anything at all." I did not want to stand between anyone and anything. I did what I did next because I was tired, and I was annoyed, and I had gotten very good this week at solving inconvenient problems by loading a skill into a bullet and firing it. I want to tell you I thought it through. I did not think it through. I thought about it for about as long as it takes to draw a revolver, which is not very long at all. I pulled self-absorbed out of my skill slot and into a round, the same skill I had used on the big ooze above to turn enemy into pet, a loyalty skill, a make the problem obey skill. I chambered it. I aimed low, at the floor near her foot, because I was not going to shoot her directly after I had just finished healing her. I squeezed. The bullet hit stone. The skill in it, missed now, went up her leg like a draft under a door. She shivered. Her pupils widened. Her mouth opened. A small pink flush ran up her neck and into her cheeks. She looked at me with an expression I had, in a different life, once hoped a girl might look at me with, and I felt my own stomach turn. "Darling," she said, quietly, in wonder. "No," I said. "Stay here," I said. "I am leaving. You are not following. Stand there. That is my order." She nodded. Her eyes did not leave mine. "Of course, darling," she said. "Anything you say." I turned. I walked. I counted my steps. 1, 2, 3. Footsteps behind me. She was following. I turned around. She was a pace behind me, bright-faced, adoring, and moving. "Stay," I said. "I cannot," she said, radiantly. "I cannot bear to." The sword at my hip had started laughing, not its theatrical laugh. The other one, the one that sounded almost sorry for me. "Pup," it said. "Oh, pup. You put a loyalty skill into a woman who was already grateful. You did not make her obedient. You amplified what was already inside her. The skill reads the intention already in the body, you fool, not the intention in your mouth. You have made the problem worse by exactly the amount of feeling she already had for you, which, based on her face, was a considerable amount. I understood, standing there, that I had just done something I could not undo with the same toolkit. I should have stopped. I know I should have stopped. I owe it to you to admit this, because I am telling you this story, and I do not get to pretend I was wiser than I was. I was frustrated. I was embarrassed. I was about to make a second mistake, because the first tool had not worked, and I was still in tool mode. I reached for the next skill, unrelated, a connection cutter, a memory eraser, if you tuned it right. I tuned it to the rescue, 1.5 minutes, enough to delete the whole scene from the moment her eyes opened on me. Take the rescue out, I thought. Take the rescue out and you take the bond out. You send her home not knowing you ever existed. You fix it. I chambered unrelated. I aimed at the floor again. I squeezed. The mist went up. She blinked. A soft blank passed over her face like a curtain being drawn and then lifted. She looked around. She looked down at her clothes. She looked at the cloak still draped over one of her shoulders. She looked at me, and she smiled. The same smile. The exact same smile. "Darling," she said. The sword was not laughing anymore. The sword had gone very, very still. "Pup," it said. "You erased the memory. You did not erase what the memory did to her. Feelings do not live in memory, pup. They live in the body. She still feels saved. She still feels yours. She just does not remember the part where she got that way." I stood there. I had fired 2 skills at a grateful woman in under 3 minutes, and I had managed, with both of them, to make her love me more and know why less. I had one more skill I could try. I had enough mana. I realized, looking at a woman who loved me on a layer the goddess's entire skill system could not reach. The tools were not going to work. The tools were not built for what this was. I put the gun away. I let my hand hang. I looked at her. She looked at me. She was waiting, patient, happy. A woman who did not remember being saved, who nevertheless knew in her body that she had been. "What?" I said. "Is your name?" "Elphalis," she said. "Darling, I am not your darling," I said. "I am Matsushiro, but I am going to call you Elphalis because you have a name, and I am tired of pretending I can make a person into a problem I shoot at." She lit up like a candle. "Elphalis," she repeated, delighted to hear me say it. "Elphalis. You said Elphalis." The sword, very quietly, said, "Good, pup. Good. That was the correct move. The one you should have made 4 minutes ago." "Shut up," I said, again, gently, without meaning it. We started walking. She fell in at my shoulder, close enough that her arm brushed mine every third step. I did not move away. I did not have the energy. I had become, in a span of minutes, a man with a companion, whether I had wanted one or not, and the companion was humming under her breath. "Tell me something useful about yourself," I said. She beamed. She had, she told me, an appraisal skill. She could look at any object and know its properties, including curses and hidden enchantments. Nothing got past her eye. "Useful," I said. "And before the monster house," she told me, she was a magic swordsman from an elf country whose name I could not hold on to. She had come to this dungeon alone, looking for a strong husband, which she admitted was perhaps not the most sensible decision she had ever made, and had lost her sword to the monster house before she had lost the rest of herself to it. Her sword, she said, had been eaten. Monsters eat weapons. The cursed sword contributed, unprompted. For the mana, it is a bad exchange rate for us. I looked at the field of stopped scorpions, at the bodies already cataloged on my sweep. Somewhere in this hall were a dozen weapons that their owners no longer needed. I walked to the nearest corpse, older armor, a sword hilt in the rubble by his hand. I pulled it out with a grinding sigh. The blade was rust, not cursed knife rust, with a secret edge underneath, just a length of orange decay shaped like a bad memory of a weapon. "Elphalis," I said, "come here." She came. I held the sword out flat in my palm. I reached for a skill I had noticed in passing and never had a reason to use. Unique and unparalleled. A skill that lifted an object toward whatever it had always had the potential to be. I fed it into the blade. The rust dissolved in a breath. Under it, a blade. Not a sword blade, the sword blade. Gold at the crossguard, silver white along the fuller, a shine that made the hall brighter just by existing in it. It was not a sword, it was the sword. The one every child in every story has been told about. The cursed sword at my hip made a noise I had not heard it make before. A quiet, strangled, unique, and unparalleled, was it? "Pup, look at that. Look at what you just did with a piece of garbage." Elphalis, beside me, had her eyes wide open. She was, I remembered, an appraiser. She stepped closer. She looked at the sword in my palm, the way an astronomer looks at a new star. "Darling," she whispered, "that is Excalibur, the real one. I am appraising it right now, and it is the real one. You just pulled Excalibur out of a rust heap." I nodded. I said, "Take it." She reached. Her hand closed on the hilt. The sword, in her grip, flashed once, a bright, defiant flash, and then sat quiet. She frowned. "It will not let me wield it," she said. "The usage is hero-locked. Darling, only heroes can use this. That is a class rank I do not have. It will refuse my strike." I thought about the goddess in her white room, writing rules into the bones of her world. Only heroes, only the ones she had chosen. The whole architecture of her system was locks on top of locks. I reached for the other name I had been saving for a rainy day, unconditional. I fed it into the blade. The hero lock came off, the way the rust had come off 2 minutes earlier. I could feel it go. A line in the sword's essence that said only these people went dim and stopped meaning anything. The blade in her palm gave one small surprised pulse and then settled against her hand as if it had always lived there. She tested it. A small, slow cut in the air. Her wrist remembered something her arm had been missing. The blade moved the way a blade moves when it has agreed to move. She looked up at me. Her eyes, this time, were not adoring. They were full of something that was not obsession and was not the skill's residue and was not even gratitude. Just a person recognizing that another person had, without being asked, given her back the thing she had come to this place to find. "Darling," she said, quieter now. "Thank you." I almost corrected her on the darling. I let it go. I was tired. The sword at my hip, who had been noisier than usual all face, said, in a voice I had never quite heard out of it before, "Pup, you did not just hand her a sword. You unwrote one of the goddess's rules. Do you know what you just did? Do you know?" "I am starting to," I said quietly to him, so Elphalis would not hear. We started walking again. Toward the corridor the ping was still painting. She walked at my shoulder. Excalibur was at her hip, bright, where the cursed sword at mine was dark, and for the first time since the white space, I was walking through a dungeon with another living person next to me, and the dungeon did not yet know what to do about it. Somewhere very far above me, I could feel the goddess not looking, but I had a feeling now that sooner or later she was going to look. The corridor opened into a scorpion nest, not the hall we had just cleaned. A smaller, older pocket on the way out, chitin shards underfoot, molted shells stacked against one wall, a faint wet smell of venom that had soaked into the stone across years. The ping in my head painted 3 exits. 2 led back into the monster house. 1 led out. The difference was not obvious to an eye. It was obvious to me. Left, I said. The far left arch. Elphalis, a step behind me, stopped walking. How? She said. Echolocation, I said. The return shape is different. The 2 on the right have air moving the wrong way. This one has air that has been somewhere. She was quiet a moment. When she spoke again, she was quieter than usual, and not in the way she got quiet when she was being adoring. Darling, she said, detection skills in humans are rare. Almost no one is born with them. Monsters have them everywhere. Humans have maybe 1 in 1,000, and usually the faintest grade. 2 of them, layered, pointing at 1 door out of 3, correct on the first try. That is not normal. That is what monsters do. She meant it as praise. She did not understand yet that I did not want to hear that word. Normal. Monster. I had stopped sorting myself into those buckets a long time ago. Walk, I said. She walked. 10 steps in, I held up a hand and stopped her again. Not a threat. A conversation we had been putting off. We should talk about how we fight, I said. Before we find something, we have to fight. She lit up. You are the vanguard, I said. Close combat. You go first. You draw the thing. You kill it. You have a bright sword and a body built for it. I am the rear guard. I put skills into bullets and bullets into problems from 15 paces back. I do not have a close combat skill. If something gets past you to me, something has gone very wrong. Do not let something get past you to me. She nodded, serious for once. I will not, she said. I explained the rest, the gun, that the bullets were not really the weapon. The skill inside the bullet was. The gun was a way to put a skill exactly where I wanted it, at exactly the range I wanted it. Targeting system. Bullet was the packet. Skill was the payload. There are a lot of skills in my kit, I said. Most I have never used. Some I have never named. The names do not tell you what the skill does until it does it. I need to test them, carefully, on targets that will not die from them. On me, she said, brightly, instantly. Before I had finished the sentence, I stared at her. On you, I said. On me, she said, with the certainty of someone who had already thought it all the way through. Any of them. You do not need to warn me. I have appraisal. I can read the effect while it is happening. Most skills in most kits will not kill me. The ones that do, I would rather die being useful to you than die old and alone in a country that forgot me. I did not like that answer. I did not say I did not like it. I said, fine. We will keep it to things I can dial back. Observe, the cursed sword remarked, a willing high-level elf on enchantment testing duty. Devoted. Harem member number 1, one might say. A fine start to a roster. Shut up, I said, without moving my mouth. Member number 2, the sword continued thoughtfully. Might be. Shut up, I said, louder. There is no roster. There is a party of 2. That is it. Darling has such a firm hand, Elphalis said, approvingly. A proper party leader. Walk, I said. 20 paces in, 3 things happened at once. Soul perception picked up a heat signature. Echolocation pinged a bipedal shape. Upright, heavy-footed. The sword at my hip said, Master, incoming, almost politely, as if this time it wanted to be useful. I started to plan. I did not finish planning. Elphalis moved. A rush of air at my shoulder, a clean step, and a second step faster than my eyes. A streak of light where Excalibur came up and out. Mana packed into her legs, her arm, her breath. She was not a magic swordsman the way human adventurers use the word. The mana did not enhance her, it inhabited her. The lizardman came around the corner. I saw it for half a second. Scaled green hide, tribal leather across the chest, a crude serrated cleaver in one clawed hand, yellow eyes going wide because something was already at its throat before its brain had decided to fight. Elphalis passed it going one way. Excalibur passed it the other. The lizardman stopped moving. There was no fight. There was an arrival and a departure, and a body on the floor between them. I stood there with my hand on the gun that I had not gotten around to drawing. She turned back toward me and beamed. Darling, she said. Was I useful? I put the gun away. Yes, I said. You were useful. She skipped. Actually skipped. A high-level magic swordsman with a legendary sword at her hip, skipping in a monster corridor because I had said the word useful. I looked at the lizardman and did the thing I had been doing with every kill since the dungeon began. I reached down to take a bite. She screamed. Not a battle scream, the other kind. the kind that came up out of a throat that had just watched a person step off a cliff. "No," she screamed. "Darling, no." I froze with my hand an inch from the lizard man's shoulder. She was on me in a breath, yanking my arm back, eyes huge. "Monster meat is poison," she said, words tumbling. "Universally poison. Raw monster meat kills an adult human in minutes. Any monster, any part. It is the first thing they tell you as a child. Darling, you cannot eat that." I looked at her. I looked at the lizard man. I looked at her again. "Thank you," I said. Her eyes went wide in a different direction. The color drained out of her face, then rushed back all at once. She made a small strangled sound and sat down hard on the stone. She did not faint, quite. She swayed. "No one has thanked her in a while," the sword observed, approvingly. "Look at her. You almost killed her with one word, pup." She recovered. She came back up smiling, a bit glassy around the edges. I sat her down properly and told her the rest. "I have a skill," I said, "called non-toxic. It makes me immune to every poison I have ever tested it against, including monster meat. Also, when I eat a monster, I get levels. I get skills. I have been doing this since I landed here. It is why I am standing." She stopped breathing for a second. "Skills," she said in a small voice. "Skills cannot be acquired after birth. That is the rule. There is a whole kingdom of scholars trying to break that rule. Darling, you break it by eating dinner." I shrugged. She stared. Then, visibly, she filed it away with the rest of the impossible things about me. Appraiser brain at work. "I could cook it," she said suddenly. "Cooked monster meat is safe. I was trained to cook. I have all the skills, and I can make fire. Darling, let me cook it, please." I sat down against the wall. I was suddenly, for the first time in a long time, tired in the way a person is tired, not in the way a survival tool is tired. "Cook it," I said. She pulled a pot and a knife and a small bag of salt from a pack she had quietly kept from the monster house. She portioned the lizardman with the efficiency of someone who had done it 100 times. She held her palm under the pot, whispered a word I did not catch, and a neat bead of orange flame bloomed and held steady. She crouched over it, humming, stirring. She was good at this, not performing, just a woman who knew how to cook, cooking. For a long moment, she was the only thing in the tunnel that was not dark. She handed me a shallow bowl, thin brown broth, flecks of meat, a little salt, steam. I ate it. It was, without any embellishment, the best thing I had eaten since the lab. I finished the bowl. She watched me finish it, not breathing, as if the verdict on the soup was the verdict on her. "Elphalis," I said. "Yes, darling. From now on," I said, "you are the party cook, permanently. That is your job. You still fight, but you also cook, every meal." She held still. Her eyes got shiny. She pressed both hands flat against her knees, very carefully, as if to keep herself from doing something embarrassing. When she answered me, her voice had a small wobble in it that I filed and did not mention. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will. Darling, I will." The cursed sword at my hip, quietly, to me only, said, "Pup." She thinks the word permanent means she is staying. I know what she thinks it means, I said back silently, and I did not take it back. I pulled up my status. The stat lines scrolled past a little higher than they had been, with a new line at the bottom, heat resistance, mid-grade, a gift from a lizardman whose ancestors must have fought something hot. I was, now, level 339. I said the number out loud without meaning to. Elphalis looked up from packing her pot. "Oh," she said, and her eyes went round. 339, that is hero class. Genuinely hero class. Humans almost never get past 100. That is the kind of level you see on top-ranked names in adventurer halls. Darling, you are very strong. I noticed something then. I had been quietly assuming I was already the strongest person within 10 floors of myself. The goddess had said rank F. I had killed rank S things. I had stopped asking where I sat on the ladder. I looked at her. "Elphalis," I said. "What is your level?" She pulled up her own status and showed me. No hesitation. I read it. Level 650. I stopped reading. I went back to the top of the line and read it again. Level 650. I glanced at the intelligence line while the panel was open. Intelligence 65. I noted it. It explained why her fire spell was a fire spell and not a sun. Her magic went into her body, not into the sky. Stat distribution has a shape. Hers had a dent in it, but that was not what I was looking at. I was looking at 650. She was almost twice my level. By her own admission, a mid-tier adventurer, middle of the pack, of her country. If she was middle, what was the top? If she was level 650 and walked around unbothered, what did the goddess walk around at? I had stood in a white room and sworn to kill the woman who threw me away. I had spent every phase since then, getting stronger in the confident belief that I was closing the gap. I had not once checked whether the gap I was closing was the only gap there was. Something cold sat down in my chest and stayed there. I did not let it show. I looked at the intelligence number again. It was a safer thing to look at. 65, I said, out loud. Dryly, she went pink. Darling, she said, plaintively. You have an intelligence score of 65? I said. I am going to study, she said. I am going to get better. Darling, please do not make fun. 1 + 1, I said. 2, she said, instantly, beaming. See, I can do arithmetic. I almost laughed. I did not. I stored that one. It was going to be useful later when I needed her not to notice I was shaken. She was still watching my face. She had caught something, not enough to name. Darling, she said, more softly. Are you all right? I am fine, I said. I was thinking. She did not push. She packed the pot, shouldered her bag, and waited for me to stand. When I did, she fell in at my shoulder, closer than before, and this time, I did not step away from her. We walked toward the exit the ping had painted. Excalibur was bright at her hip. The cursed sword was dark at mine. She hummed softly. I did not. 650, I said, privately, to the sword. Yes, the sword said, gently. And she is middle of the pack. Yes, the sword said, gently. So what is the top? I said. The sword was quiet for a long time. I do not know, pup, it said, finally, but I would like very much to find out. We walked. Somewhere very far above me, I could feel the goddess not looking. But now, for the first time since I had stood in her white room, I was not entirely sure what I would do if she did. We walked. The monster house was behind us. The tunnel narrowed and sloped down, the stone warmer under the boots than it had been an hour ago. Elphalis hummed at my shoulder. The cursed sword was quiet. I was still holding the number in my head, 650, middle of the pack. It sat in my chest like a small cold stone, and I kept pretending to step around it. The sword spoke first. Enemy, it said. I stopped walking. Elphalis stopped half a step later without being told. Which direction? I said. Ahead, the sword said. Low, something wet. I sent echolocation down the tunnel in a narrow cone. The shape it painted was squat and wide, mouth taking up half the body, with heavy glands under each side of the jaw, showing up as 2 dense, warm points. Great toad, Elphalis said, quietly, at my elbow. The adventurer under the adoring elf surface switched on. High heat oil, she said. They spit it. It ignites on the air. Physical attacks slide off the coating before they reach the body. So fire magic, I said. She nodded. Fireworks. I ran the math fast. The safe zone skill let ranged attacks through. A bullet would hit the oil coat and lose its payload on the splash. Excalibur meant closing the distance, and closing distance with a thing that spat burning oil was stupid. Fire magic then. Hers. You cast, I said. I cover. She looked at me half a second before she answered. I caught the smallest hesitation, like she wanted to say something and did not. Yes, darling, she said. I layered ignore on her. Her outline went soft at the edges, for everyone in the world except me. The soul perception path lit up in my head like a string with a bead on the end. I could feel her exactly. She advanced. I stayed back. The great toad's wet bulk filled the far end of the tunnel. Inferno ball, she said, softly. The spell condensed above her palm, a compressed orange-white core, and she threw it. It hit the toad between the front legs and bloomed. The tunnel flashed hot. Flames ran in sheets along its back. Its jaws snapped open, wider than its head had any right to allow, and a dense bubble of burning oil shot out in a hard, flat arc. Aimed at me, I started to plan. I did not finish planning. She moved. I felt her through the soul path before I saw her. She had turned, pivoted, and put her body between the projectile and mine. The oil bubble hit her right arm and burst. Her right arm went up in a quick, bright sear. She made a small sound, not a scream, just a sound. I fired before the sound finished. The bullet had unharmed already loaded on it, pre-stacked, rotation ready. I had been carrying that configuration for weeks of dungeon time because I had known, without admitting it, that this scenario would happen. The gun said yes. The bullet crossed the distance between us in milliseconds and touched her arm. The burn closed. The skin knit. There was no mark. There was not even red. Her arm was fine. I turned the gun back on the toad. The coat had burned down to a crust. I shot it once. The toad went down like a sack. Its gland points stopped glowing in my echolocation. Done. I did not move for a second. Elphalis was already smiling again. She was holding her arm up, turning it so I could see, laughing a little breath of a laugh. See, darling, she said. All better. Not even a mark. You are so fast. I stared at her. She kept smiling. Darling, she said. I was not moving. Darling, she said, more quietly. What is it? 2 tears fell out of me. Not sobs, not a breakdown. 2 tears, in a line, one after the other, down the same cheek. I did not lift a hand to wipe them. I could feel them going, and I could not think of a reason to stop them. She stopped smiling. Oh, she said. Oh, darling. She came closer, like she had found a small, frightened animal and did not want to scare it off. She put her hand on my chest. Her palm was warm. I said, do not do that again. My voice came out low and even, the way it had not been since the white room. I said. You have a sword that would have cut that bubble in half if you had kept your place. You did not have to take it. Darling, she said. I did not want to heal you, I said. I wanted you not to be hit. I know, darling, she said. I am sorry, I said. Do not protect me at your own cost. Not like that. Not without saying it first. She did not cry. She did not smile either. She just held her hand where it was, on my chest, and nodded slowly once. And darling, she said, if I see something coming at you and I can stop it, let me say it too. Let me say it and not just do it. That way you can answer. That way you can decide. Yes, I said. And darling, she said. What? I said. If I ever cannot say it in time, she said. Please do not hate me for moving anyway. I did not answer that. I did not know how to answer that. I wiped the 2 tears on the back of my hand and looked at the wet on my skin like I had never seen it before. Then I looked at the toad. Dismantle it? I said. Yes, darling, she said, softly. She pulled the cursed knife and knelt beside the carcass. Her right arm moved perfectly. The cursed sword said, gently, into my head, you handled it well. I did not answer. It said, she is watching you more carefully than she was before. Yes, I said. Within a few minutes, she had separated a clean section of pale thick meat from the toad's hindquarter and a small heavy sack of rendered oil from one of the glands. She held them up, both hands, like a child showing a parent the first fish. Darling, she said, bright and breathless. Meat and oil. Look, both edible. Appraisal says so. What kind of oil? I said. She beamed. Cooking oil, she said, from a thing that shoots burning oil. The dungeon is very funny sometimes. And the meat? I said. Edible for humans, she said. Not for me. For you? Fine. Like chicken, but heavier. She paused. Darling, she said, do you want fried frog cutlets? Something shifted in my chest. A small warm thing, stupid and specific. I had not had fried food since the lab. Not once. The earth I had left had hot oil and breadcrumbs and a fan running over the stove and people waiting for the plate. I had not realized until this second how much I had missed it. Yes, I said. I will help, I said. She looked up at me like I had done something miraculous. You will help, she said. Cutting the meat, I said. Not the cooking. I do not know how to fry. You handle the oil. Yes, darling, she said. Yes, yes. She laid out the cutting kit. I took the second knife. She showed me once, a single clean stroke, how thick to cut the strips. I copied her. My strips were ugly. She laughed at them kindly and did not recut them. She tore bread into crumbs, cracked a pair of eggs into a tin plate, whisked them with the back of the knife. She heated the oil in a small iron pan with a low chant of fire. The air in the tunnel changed. It smelled, for the first time in months, of something I had eaten as a child. The cutlets went in, hissed, turned, crisped, came out gold. She put one on a plate and set it in my hand. Darling, she said, please. I ate it. It was good. It was better than it had any business being, in a monster tunnel, off an enemy that had nearly killed me. The coat was crisp. The meat was rich and faintly sweet. The oil carried a light nut. I chewed slowly and ate the whole cutlet without speaking. She was not eating. I watched her for a second. She had fried 4 cutlets. 1 was on my plate. 3 were on hers. She was sitting with her hands folded and her eyes on me, waiting. Why are you not eating? I said. Her smile wobbled. Not sad, exactly. Just honest. Monster meat, she said. My body cannot handle it. I can touch it. I can cook it. I cannot eat it. It is not safe for elves. Not even fried. She said it the way she said everything. Plain. As if the fact that she could cook a meal she could not share was a normal thing. I looked at my plate. I looked at the cutlets on hers. I activated harmless on the top one. The skill settled over the cutlet in a thin, unseen way. The poison in the meat, the part of it that was hostile to her, quietly stopped being hostile. I picked the cutlet up. I leaned across the stone. I held it out to her. Eat, I said. It is safe now. She did not move for a long second. Then, she took it in both hands, like it was breakable, and she looked up at me, and her eyes filled. Darling, she said. Eat, I said, again, because I did not know what else to say. She bit into the cutlet, a small, careful bite. She chewed. She closed her eyes. Tears ran silent down both cheeks, and she kept eating. She did not try to speak through it. She just ate, slowly, with tears running, and every now and then a little sound came out of her throat that was not a word, only an acknowledgement. Somewhere under the surface of my head, I said the sentence to myself before I could catch it. Eating with her is better than eating alone. I did not say it out loud. The cursed sword said, at my hip, very quietly, yes it is. I did not tell it to shut up. We ate. When she was done, she wiped her face on the inside of her sleeve and laughed, a little embarrassed. I said nothing about the tears. We packed the pan, packed the plates. She wrapped the leftover oil and meat carefully in cloth. She stayed close. We kept moving. The tunnel sloped down again. Fewer monsters, she said, after a while. As we go deeper, there are fewer, but the ones that are left are higher level. The stronger ones eat the weaker ones and push them up, so the lower floors thin out. Do not mistake empty for safe, darling. I filed it. We walked for a stretch that might have been an hour. Echolocation stayed quiet. Then it did not. Something was standing in the corridor ahead. It did not move. It did not breathe. It did not show up in soul perception at all. I held up a hand. Elphalis froze. I advanced under ignore and silence. Layered. The shape resolved. A tall suit of dark dungeon armor, full plate, ornate, crested at the shoulders, headless. The collar ended in empty air. A long, heavy sword hung in one gauntleted hand. Dullahan, she breathed behind me. Weak point is not the neck. That is a trap. Soul perception found nothing inside the plate. Hollow. And yet it stood, and the gauntlet held the sword the way a man held a sword, not the way a puppet did. I extended echolocation past the dullahan, around the corner of the branching side tunnel behind it. There, a small warm thing the size of a dodgeball, curled in a crack in the rock 20 paces off. Its surface crackled faintly, like a coat of static. A rat with the skill to drive an empty suit of armor from a distance, the way a current drives a machine. The knight was a puppet. The rat was the hand. I did not have to explain any of it. She had felt me decide. Inferno ball, she said, quiet and already casting, aimed not at the armored shape in front of us, but at the crack in the wall beyond it. The spell went sideways through the air, around the dullahan, and hit the rat where it was hiding. The static stopped. The thing stopped. The dullahan's arm fell. The sword clanged on the stone. The plate armor swayed once and collapsed, piece by piece, like a tower of dishes no one was holding up. Elphalis turned to me and hugged me, hard, with both arms, forehead pressed against my collarbone. Darling, she said, into my shoulder. You did not have to say a word. I did not, I said. We do not need to anymore, she said. I let her stand like that a second longer than I would have a week ago. Then I stepped back, not because I wanted distance, but because I had thought of something. I looked at the pile of dark plate on the floor. What colors do you like? I said. She blinked. Colors, she said. Yes, I said. On you. What colors? She stared at me. I am asking, I said. Her face went the kind of pink it had gone when I teased her about arithmetic, except she was not laughing. White, she said, and blue. White with blue trim. I always wanted when I was small. I never owned any. I nodded. I walked to the pile of armor and put my hand on it. Under my sleeve, the black ooze peeled off the inside of my coat, slid down my arm, and ran over the armor like water. It drank the plate the way it had drunk the scorpion. The metal softened, thinned, reformed. The ooze pulled back into a new shape on the stone, not the dullahan's tall, heavy plate. A lighter suit, fitted. The breastplate narrower at the waist, the pauldrons smaller, the greaves cut for her stride. White, with blue trim along every seam, along the collar, along the edges of the gauntlets. The ooze had taken the dullahan's defense and given it her shape. I picked up the breastplate and turned to her. Try it, I said. She could not speak. She took it, stepped back, fitted it on piece by piece, fastened the straps. It sat on her like it had been forged on her body. The white caught the pale light of Excalibur and threw it back blue at the trim. She ran her hands down the front plate, like she did not quite believe it was there. 2 tears came, silent. Down the same cheek she had laughed at me from 20 minutes ago. I will wear this forever, she said. Darling, forever. I said nothing. She crossed the space between us and hugged me again, armored now, the breastplate cold against my chest. She did not need to say anything else. Inside my head, very quietly, where nothing could hear me but the cursed sword and myself, I said the thing I had not let myself say. I care. I said it only once. I did not take it back. The sword did not tease me. The sword said nothing at all. We walked on. Excalibur was bright at her hip. The cursed sword was dark at mine. Her new white and blue plate caught the tunnel light every few steps and held it a second longer than the stone did. Somewhere very far above me, I could feel the goddess not looking. For the first time since I had stood in her white room, I was not entirely sure I wanted her to. We walked on. The pile of dark plate was behind us, reshaped into the armor on her body. The tunnel narrowed again. The stone was starting to give off a faint, dry heat at the walls. I had not taken the electricity rat yet. It was still wrapped on a strip of cloth in my pack. After a while, I stopped, unwrapped it, and ate it. Plain, no ceremony. The skill door opened in the back of my head, the way it always did. Supermagnetism, a voice said. Then, quieter, under it, the level voice. 501. I had crossed past 500. She was still well above me. The distance mattered, but for the first time since she had said 650, it had gotten a little smaller. Elphalis watched my face. She could read skill acquisition on me now. Darling, she said, what did you get? Magnetism, I said. Strong, hold still. She held still. I reached with the new skill the way you reach with a hand you have never tried before. I found her sword hilt, her armor, every steel buckle on her body. I pulled. She lifted off the stone a hand's height and hung there. Her eyes went wide. Then she laughed, bright, surprised, kicking a little in the air like a girl on a rope swing. Darling, she said in the middle of the laugh, I am flying. I cut the skill. She came down on her toes. Sorry, I said. Do it again, she said. No, I said. She pouted. I turned my face so she would not see the corner of my mouth move, and the cursed sword noticed anyway. You are smiling, it said, in my head. Look at you. I ignored it. I have an idea, I said. She stepped closer immediately, the way she always did when I said any sentence that began with I. What idea? She said. I lifted the lucky gun. I ran super magnetism along the barrel. The magnetism found the lead in the chamber and coiled around it. Gun launches the round. Magnetism kicks it forward the way a river kicks a leaf. The round leaves the muzzle at a speed that had no business coming out of a revolver. Railgun, I said to myself. The word fit. Range test, I said to her. Step back. She stepped back. I picked a small outcrop of stone on the far wall, about 30 paces. I aimed. I pulled the trigger. The bullet left the gun the way a piece of sky tears. There was no crack the way a normal bullet cracks. There was a flat, hard whump of air, a line of violet light, and a hole through the outcrop. The hole kept going, through the rock behind the outcrop, out into whatever was on the other side. Dust came down from the ceiling. A thin ring of heat haze shimmered where the round had been. Also, on the way, the round had clipped a corner of her pauldron. A small bite of white plate was gone from the outer curve of the left shoulder armor, clean, like a knife had scooped it out. I saw it before she did. Elphalis, I said. She turned to face me, still delighted from the shot. Then she looked down at herself. Her hand went to the pauldron. Her fingers found the missing chunk. Her face fell. Oh, she said, very small. Oh, darling. Her eyes filled. I took a step toward her. I had the hand that was not holding the gun already halfway up. Elphalis, I said. It is the armor. It is only the armor. The ooze will repair it. The ooze will grow it back. 1 minute. Less than a minute. Hold still. She did not hold still. Her shoulders shook. A tear ran down her cheek. Then another. She was looking at the gap in the plate, like I had taken something from her. I care about this armor, darling, she said, in the tiny voice. You gave it to me. You made it for me. I was already at her. I had the gun holstered. My hands were on her shoulders. I will fix it, I said. Right now. Just let me. And she looked up at me with both eyes bright and both tear tracks shining and said in a completely different voice, just kidding. I froze. She smiled. The tears were real, but the sad was not. Darling, she said, you are so worried. That is so cute. The cursed sword laughed in my head so hard I felt it in my teeth. I said, Elphalis. Yes, darling, I said. Do not do that. She giggled. She wiped her face with the back of her gauntlet. A crumb of real tear caught on the edge of the metal. Only because I wanted to see what you would do, she said. Now I know. I should have scolded her harder. I did not. I looked at her for a long second. The white plate with the blue trim, the wet tear on her cheek, the smile creeping back into her mouth. And something in my chest did a stupid small thing I did not have a name for. Do not do it again, I said. I will think about it, she said. The black ooze under my coat understood without being asked. A thread of it ran down my sleeve, across the air between us, onto her shoulder. The missing bite of pauldron filled itself in, white, blue trim along the curve, exactly as it had been. There, I said. You are whole, she beamed. At my hip, the cursed sword spoke quietly. You are smiling, it said again. Do not pretend you are not. The elf girl has been waiting. You know what I think. I think you should take her. I did not answer it. I also did not deny it. That was the first thing. The second thing came a little later. We kept walking. I was turning a new problem in my head, and she could feel me doing it even without looking. Her intelligence was low. She had told me that the first night. Her low intelligence did not make her a weaker caster. Her power was obscene, but it made her slow. The chant on Inferno Ball took her about 3 seconds. On her strongest spells, much longer. In a room with a serious opponent, 3 seconds was everything. I had Void. Void removed existence from a thing. I had used it on dust, on pain, on poison. What if I used it on the existence of a chant requirement? The mechanic was clean. Strip the rule. Leave the effect. The spell would still be a spell. The caster would not need to say it. I pulled out a blank bullet from my belt kit. I laced Void into it and tuned the Void to one narrow target. The chant requirement rule inside a spell being cast in my presence. Not the spell, not the power, the rule. It took a while. She sat beside me with her knees drawn up, watching my hands, not interrupting. I loaded the bullet into a side chamber. I turned to her. Elphalis, I said, I need you to cast something, your strongest fire magic, the one that needs the long chant. Her eyes lit up. Fire continuous shot, she said. Yes, I said, that one. Why, darling? I want to test something. Start your chant, the normal way. I will fire at you during the chant. Keep going. Do not flinch. You will feel it. She did not ask a second question. She trusted me already. She stood up, held her palms out in front of her chest, and began the long incantation of the high-tier fire spell. The first syllable left her mouth. I fired the omission bullet. The void slug crossed the air and struck her at the center of the breastplate, not to hurt, only to be absorbed, and dissolved into a cold, soft shimmer that settled along her body. The chant stopped. Her mouth was still open around the second syllable. Inside her chest, the spell finished building anyway. No sound, no further word. The full spell, at full power, in 0 seconds. She raised both hands with the spell already formed between them, and a column of roaring orange-white fire erupted from her palms into the empty air of the tunnel, lashing the far wall clean, searing the stone to glass for 20 paces before she cut it. Then silence. She stood with both hands still raised, breathing hard, eyes enormous. Darling, she said. Darling, what just happened? I did not chant. The spell came anyway. I have never, darling. Her voice was shaking, not from the spell, from what the spell meant. I said, a bullet that strips the chant rule. I called it omission. Hold still, I can make more. She stared at me. Darling, she said, after a long second, do you know what you just did? I know what I just did, I said. No, she said. No, you do not. Listen. She sat down on the stone, slowly, as if her legs had decided for her. Chant omission, she said. Small chant omission, the first-year beginner's spell. A grand master can shorten it by years of work. For high-tier magic, darling, listen to me. For high-tier magic, it is not hard. It is impossible. No mage in any nation has ever cast high-tier magic without chant. It is considered a rule of the world, like gravity, like the sky being up. She looked at her own hands like they belonged to someone else. You just broke it for me, she said, in 12 minutes, with a bullet. I did not know what to say to that. I had made a tool. The tool had worked. She reached up and took my sleeve. Darling, she said, listen, when we leave this dungeon, when we go up, you cannot show this. Not ever. Not the railgun and not this. There are people above the dungeons who watch for patterns, appraisal orders, mage guilds, temple eyes. If they see a mage cast a high-tier spell with no chant, they will look for the one who made it possible. And when they find you, they will not call you an adventurer. They will call you a divine class threat. Temples will move. The goddess's own agents will move. She held my sleeve very tight. Promise me, she said. Not outside, only here, only with me. I promised. The cursed sword laughed, softly, at my hip. What a matching couple, it said. The boy who breaks the world's rules, and the girl who tells him where to hide them, made for each other. Elphalis heard the tone even if she did not hear the words. She turned pink above the armor collar. I did not look at her. Inside my head, very quietly, where only the sword and I could hear it, I said the sentence I had been refusing to say for 7 phases. I want her to stay. The sword did not tease. It only breathed out, a thing a voice does when a person has sat down after a long walk and said nothing. I did not take it back. I made 5 more omission bullets for her and clipped them to the inside of her belt. 5 shots. 5 instant high-tier spells. 5 moments where she would cast at the speed of thought. That was the second thing. We walked on, together. The third thing came later. The monsters on the lower floor were stronger, fewer, and not very interesting. A pair of armored dungeon wolves, another puppet-style empty plate, a crawling thing with too many legs. Each one lasted about 6 seconds. Between her sword and my railgun and the new bullets on her belt, nothing down there could stand. Then, the tunnel opened out into a wide, flat space, and at the far end was a door, a single door. It was 10 meters tall and half as wide, and made of something that was not quite stone and not quite iron. There were no carvings on it. It did not need carvings. The weight of it carried the meaning. Elphalis stopped walking. I stopped with her. Is this? I said. The boss room. Yes, darling, she said. This is the boss room. Her voice was light, too light. It was the voice she used when she was trying to make a thing sound smaller than it was. She kept talking, quickly, maybe to stop me from hearing the gap under her words. In dungeons, there is always one monster, she said. The master. It guards the core. Defeat the master. Destroy the core. The dungeon clears and the exit opens. That is the rule. So we defeat the master. We destroy the core. We walk out. Easy, she said. She smiled. The The smile did not reach her eyes. I looked at her for a second longer than I usually did. The cursed sword spoke at my hip, without laughing. Dungeon Master's level is proportional to dungeon difficulty, it said. This is the Labyrinth of Wrath, 7 Hells tier. Whatever is behind that door will be far above us. I thought you should know. I opened my status sheet in my head. I looked down the list, the skill bank, the gun, the railgun, the omission bullets, the cursed knife, the cursed sword, the black ooze, the undercoat layer, the scorpion bank, night cloak, the hoarded preserved meat, heat resistance, non-toxic, harmless, echolocation, ignore, silence, unharmed, void, supermagnetism, the nun slot, the full enchantment rotation, level past 500, all of it. I was strong. I had also never been this scared. For the first time since I had stood in the white room, I admitted it to myself without dressing it up. I might die behind this door. I might die in the next hour. I might fail her. She was talking again. I tuned back in. With our combo, she was saying, with us, together, no enemy can win. You and me, darling. We walk in together and we walk out together. It is okay. It is going to be okay. Her voice was bright. It was also holding something under it. She was hiding something from me. I could hear it. The forced smile was in her throat. The pitch was up a quarter step. Her eyes did the thing they did when she was trying not to cry at a meal, except worse. I opened my mouth to ask her what she was not telling me. She spoke first. Darling, she said. Yes, I said. I trust you completely, she said. Not a little, not mostly, completely. Whatever is on the other side of that door. You and me together, we can do this. I am not afraid of the room. I am not afraid of anything in there. I am with you. She put her gauntleted hand against my chest, the way she had put her palm on my chest after the oil burn. I looked at her. For a second, one long second, between one heartbeat and the next, I saw a picture I had not let myself see. I saw her and me walking up, out of the dungeon, into daylight. I saw her flinching at the sun the first time, because she had not seen the sun in centuries. I saw her laughing at a bird. I saw her trying a food that was not monster meat. I saw her in her white and blue plate, walking in a market, under a sky that was not a ceiling. I saw it the way you see a memory of a thing that had not happened yet. Something in me decided I was going to live through this room. I was going to live through this room because I wanted to be the one who showed her the sky. I closed the status sheet. I holstered the gun. I put my hand on the door and I looked at her. Elphalis, I said. Let us go. Yes, darling, she said. Together, I said. Together, she said. The cursed sword was quiet. The black ooze was quiet. Even my own head, for the first time in weeks, was quiet. I pushed. The door opened, and somewhere very far above me, past the stone and past the floors and past the sky I could not see, I could still feel the goddess not looking. For the first time since I had stood in her white room, I was glad. Whatever happened next, I did not want her to see. The door shut behind us. It shut with a heavy sound, like a stone lid dropping into a stone cup. And then there was only the other noise, the noise of the room. The room was a chamber, vast, round and high-ceilinged, walls of cracked black basalt, streaked with old fire scars. And, at the center of the floor, not a floor at all, a pool of roiling orange-red magma, thick, slow, surface breaking open in lazy bubbles the size of a man's head. And under each bubble, the heat pushed up in a shimmer I could see with my eyes. Rocks floated on the pool, actual rocks, hand-sized, wagon-sized, a few the size of small houses. They drifted on the magma like ice on a slow river. The heat hit my face in a wall. The smell was the smell of melted stone, a dry, metallic, almost sweet burn at the back of my nose. My cloak moved on its own in the updrafts. Elphalis stepped up beside me. Excalibur was already in her hand. The light from the pool painted her white and blue plate in a bad color, too orange, too red. It made her look like a thing that could burn. She did not look afraid. Darling, she said, do not worry. I have you and you have me. We are going to be fine. I did not answer her. At the center of the pool, the magma began to climb. It climbed the way a thick syrup climbs, when something underneath it is pushing up. A hump at first, then a shoulder, then a second shoulder, then a head. Magma ran off the shape in long, slow waterfall strings, and each string poured back into the pool and was drunk back up without losing a drop. It stood. It stood easily 30 meters tall, a humanoid shape made entirely of roiling molten rock, thick-limbed and hunched at the shoulders, skin a cracked glowing crust of black and orange where the heat broke through in long vein lines, 2 eyes like twin suns set in a head that had no mouth, long arms hanging past its knees, the air around it bent from heat. It opened the place where a mouth should have been. It roared. The sound was not a sound, it was pressure. It shoved the air. It shoved the cloak flat against my back. It shoved small pebbles off the walls. Magma giant, the cursed sword set at my hip. very calmly. This is the master. Do not miss. I raised the lucky gun. I had been saving one round for exactly this. The void bullet, my most dangerous bullet. A round with the void skill burnt into its core. A bullet that, at the point of contact, erased existence for a radius of about 2 meters. Black hole-like, Elphalis had called it when I showed it to her. She had made me promise not to fire it above ground. It was my strongest shot. It was my first shot. I aimed at the center of the giant's chest, where, on a thing with organs, the heart would be. I breathed out. I pulled the trigger. The bullet left the muzzle clean, straight line, halfway to the chest, and then the void went off. Not at the chest, in the air, halfway between us. The world around the bullet collapsed inward for half a breath, a hole opening in nothing, the heat around the round being sucked out of reality. And when it closed, there was a spherical bite missing from the giant's right side. Shoulder, ribs, half the chest, half a flank, gone, clean, like a bowl had been scooped out of a hot cake. The giant staggered. It bellowed. Orange magma slopped out of the wound in a thick gush. And then, from its waist, from the rest of the pool still feeding it, the missing half began to refill. Magma rose up through the crust like a cup, filling from a spring. Shoulder, rib, flank, chest. Less than 5 seconds. The wound was gone. The giant rolled the new arm once in its socket to test it. I stood there with an empty hand. What happened? I said. Your bullet went off early, the cursed sword said. The air in here is saturated with elemental radiation. Void is a skill that operates on the law of existence. In this environment, the law is hot and loud, and the skill triggered early. Your strongest round, wasted. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Elphalis put her hand on my arm, very lightly, just the tips of her fingers. Darling, she said, it is fine. It is fine. We still have us. I looked at her. Yes, I said, we still have us. The giant took its first step forward. The magma pool parted for its foot and closed behind it. It was coming. Elphalis raised Excalibur. Darling, she said, I will go first. You stay back. You shoot. Yes, I said. Go. She went. She went the way she had gone at the toad. Faster than a level 650 body should have been able to move. Faster than the giant expected. Her feet barely touched the rocks floating on the magma. She hit the air between two of them and used it as a step. She was on the giant's shin, then the giant's knee, then the giant's hip, in 3 strides. She said one word. Blue wave blade, she said. Excalibur cut a long, clean arc through the giant's right forearm. A sword beam of pale blue light followed the swing, sliced through the magma, and the forearm dropped away from the elbow and hit the floor with a wet slap. The giant roared. Its eyes turned to her, exactly as she had planned. It reached with the good arm. It did not reach to punch her. It reached to the magma pool, scooped up a rock the size of a small house, and threw it. She jumped. She twisted in the air like a dancer dropped off a roof, let the rock pass under her, landed on a floating boulder, and kicked off it, and came down 30 paces from the giant, breathing easy. I was already moving. Ignore was on. Silence was on. Airwalk was on. I was up in the air at the giant's blind side, invisible to ordinary senses, soundless, coming in at its back, with a penetration bullet loaded and ready, aimed at the junction where its new arm met its shoulder, the weak seam. The giant did not have ordinary senses. Its eyes closed. A ring of heat spread out of its body in a slow pulse, a perception wave. I felt it slide across me. I felt it find me. The giant turned. Its good arm swung, not at Elphalis, at me. The arm was coming the way a building comes down. I had time for one word in my head. She was already speaking. Ice spear barrage, Elphalis said. From her raised palm, a cloud of pale blue spears shot up into the chamber. 30 of them, 40, and they slammed into the giant's swinging arm mid-arc and froze it solid from wrist to shoulder. A crust of pale blue ice crackled across the orange crust, and the arm, still swinging, stopped, frozen. The giant was thrown off balance by its own stopped weight. I landed on its frozen bicep and put the lucky gun against the frozen shoulder joint and fired the penetration bullet from contact range. The bullet punched through the ice. The ice did the rest. The arm shattered from shoulder to wrist all at once in a rolling crash of pale blue glass shards that rained down onto the magma and hissed and sank. The stump the arm had been attached to twitched. Orange magma welled up in the stump. It welled slowly. It welled a lot slower than it had before. There it is, the cursed sword said in my head. You see it. Ice on the wound. The pool cannot feed hot fluid through frozen tissue. The regan is blocked. I saw it. Elphalis, I said. "Freeze the other arm." She did not ask why. She said yes and raised her palm. The giant had already noticed. It tried to pull the arm back behind its bulk. It was too slow. A second cloud of blue spears shot from her hand, drove across the chamber, hit the other arm at the elbow, and froze it solid from elbow to fingertip. I was already in the air again. Ignore an airwalk holding me. I put the gun against the frozen elbow and fired. The second arm shattered, clean. The giant stood there with no arms, stumps smoking, magma welling up in both shoulders. Too slowly, the frozen rim still holding. It opened the place where its mouth was not and screamed. The sound was rage now, not confusion, rage. Elphalis landed beside me, breathing a little quick, and she was smiling. "Darling," she said, "it is working. It is working. Oh my goodness." 4 bullets left, I said. Her smile steadied. "Then we do 4 more things," she said. We did 4 more things. The giant's eyes tracked her, both of its eyes. The mouthless face centered on her, the way a weapon centers on a target, and I watched the muscle in its shoulder stump clench as it prepared to throw its whole body forward in a punch. It had no arm. It was going to use the stump. It was going to crush her with its own remaining mass. I had been waiting for an attack like this. I raised the lucky gun and fired a stop bullet. The stop bullet crossed the chamber and hit the giant's shoulder stump the moment the punch began. The punch stopped, mid-throw. A mountain of magma frozen in motion. The stump extended forward, the body hanging off balance behind it. Elphalis did not waste the beat. She raised both palms and poured ice spears up along the extended stump, crusting it from shoulder to raw end in a thick sheath of pale blue. I put a round into the frozen shoulder joint the way I had put one into the arm. The left stump shattered. No shoulder, no arm, no stump. Orange magma poured up out of the torso in a steady, slow stream, and the ice at the rim of the wound held and did not let the wound close. 3 bullets left. The giant's eyes opened wide, too wide. "Darling," Elphalis said. Its eyes. The twin suns burned brighter, white hot. The heat in the chamber jumped a full step, and from both eyes at once, twin beams of focused white light lanced out across the chamber at Elphalis. A heat ray. She was already moving. She pushed off the floor in a single hard kick and twisted mid-air, body going one way, feet going another, and the twin beams passed under her arched back, so close the blue trim on her breastplate whitened from the heat, and scored a long black line across the basalt wall behind her. She landed on a floating rock. The beams tracked her. The beams kept coming. The giant was holding them. A sustained ray, tracking her as she moved, chewing through the chamber with her as its center point. I loaded a bullet. I loaded 2 skills into it. Intangible, to let the bullet pass through the beam without being blocked by it. Uncontrol, to strip the giant's directional control the moment the bullet touched the beam's source. I aimed at the giant's head. I fired. The bullet crossed the heat ray, passed through it the way a fish passes through water, struck the giant at the center of its forehead between the twin suns. The uncontrol hit. The giant's grip on its own heat ray broke. The beams were still firing, but the giant was no longer aiming them. They followed path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance, from the source out, looped back on the source. The beams curved. They curved up. They curved in, and they fed back into the giant's own head from 2 directions at once, and the giant's head, the whole top half of it, came apart in a flash of white light and a rolling boom that shook the chamber. When the light was gone, the giant had no head, just a neck stump of roiling orange magma, groping blindly. 2 bullets left. Elphalis was on its shoulder before the neck stump even knew she was there, her palm on what had been its collarbone, ice pouring down through its upper chest in a tight frozen column. I steadied the lucky gun. I fired into the frozen column. The whole upper torso cracked open like a fired pot. 1 bullet left. The giant staggered back toward the pool, mass collapsing, magma pouring up in a final panicked region, trying to rebuild a head, a shoulder, an arm, anything. Elphalis raised both hands one last time. "Last one," I said to her. To me, last one, she said. A column of ice the thickness of a tree trunk rose up through the center of the giant's torso from the inside out. She was not freezing a limb. She was freezing its core, the channel by which the pool was feeding the shape. The giant's orange crust went pale blue from neck stump to waist in a single second. I put the last bullet into the frozen core. The giant broke, not shattered, broke from the inside. A long cracking sound, like a glacier splitting, and the entire humanoid shape came apart in large bright pieces that fell away from each other and dropped into the pool below. The pieces hissed on the surface of the magma. Some of them sank. Some of them cooled into floating stone in seconds. A thin pale blue steam rose up where the ice had been. Silence. The giant was gone. The chamber was only the pool now, and the heat, and us. Elphalis turned to me with both eyes enormous and both hands still raised, and then she dropped the hands and she ran. She hit me at a full sprint, and her armored arms went around my neck, and her face pressed into my shoulder plate, and she laughed. A real laugh, cracked open at the edges, a laugh that had been bottled up under every forced smile since the door, and she was saying something, fast, into my collar. "Darling," she was saying. "Darling, darling, we did it. We did it, we did it. You and me, together, just us. We killed the master. We killed a master of the 7 hells. Darling, oh darling." I held her. I did not let go, but I did not laugh. I was looking past her shoulder at the pool. The pool was still bubbling, not dying down, not cooling. The surface was moving in the same slow, lazy way it had been moving when we walked in. The bubbles were the same size. The heat coming off it was the same heat. The pieces of the giant that had fallen into it were gone, swallowed, absorbed, and the pool had not even dimmed. The cursed sword was silent at my hip. I listened to my own breathing. I listened to the silence where the cursed sword's victory quip should have been. The sword does not joke when it is thinking. "Darling," Elphalis said, pulling back a little to look up at my face, and her smile was so bright it hurt. "Darling, why are you not smiling? We did it. It is over." I looked at the pool. I looked back at her. I said it out loud. Not loud, just once. Clear enough for her to hear it. Clear enough for the cursed sword to hear it. Clear enough for the chamber to hear it. That was too easy. The chamber did not answer. Elphalis' smile faltered, just a little, at the edges. "Darling," she said. "That was too easy," I said again. A bubble the size of a wagon rose up on the pool behind us and broke open with a soft, wet plop, and the heat from the break washed over the back of my neck, and neither of us turned around to look. She kept her arms around me. I kept my eyes on the water, and somewhere above us, past the stone and past the floors and past the sky I could not see, the goddess was still not looking. For the first time since the door, I wished she would. She was laughing into my shoulder plate when it happened. I remember the exact weight of her arms around my neck. I remember the smell of melted stone in the chamber and the slow, wet plop of another bubble breaking open on the pool behind us. I remember saying that was too easy for the second time and meaning it. I remember her pulling back from the hug to look at me, and then her face changed. The laugh was still on her mouth when it started to fade. Not fade exactly, fold, like a page folding in on itself. The corners of her smile pulled in too tight and held there, and her eyes went from bright to careful, and for a second, I was looking at the same forced smile she had worn at the boss room door. She had been carrying something the whole fight. She had been carrying it since the door closed, and now that we had won, or thought we had won, she had decided to put it down. "Darling," she said. Her voice was soft. "There is something I want to tell you." And for 1 second only, my heart lifted. I thought she was going to say the thing I had not said to her at the door. The thing I had wanted to say and had not. The thing I had promised myself I would say when the dungeon was behind us and she was safe and the world outside was a real place we could walk into together. I thought she was going to say it for me. I opened my mouth to answer her. The pool surged. I did not see it. She did. Her eyes were on my face. Mine were on hers. But something in the chamber geometry shifted behind me, and her eyes moved a fraction past my shoulder, and they went wide. She did not shout. She did not name it. She did not even breathe. She pushed me, both hands flat on my breastplate, one hard shove with her whole body behind it, the kind of push that comes out of a person faster than thought. I felt my feet leave the ground. I felt the air move. I felt her weight leave me. I was in the air, and then on the stone 2 meters away, landing on my shoulder, rolling once, coming up onto one knee, already turning to ask her what. What did you see? What is wrong? The heat ray was already through where I had been standing. It was not a beam of fire. It was not a line of light. It was a bar of white, so pure and so hot that the air along its path was not there anymore. It had come from a small aperture that had opened in the pool's surface behind us, a seam in the magma that had slid apart like an eye opening and then closed again. One pulse, one shot. Elphalis was in the path of it. She had pushed me out and stepped into my place. I saw the beam reach her, and then I did not see her. There was no blood. There was no sound. There was not even the shape of her for a fraction of a second after. The beam passed through where she had been standing and continued on into the far basalt wall and scored a black horizontal line across the stone, and the line cooled and the chamber went quiet. The air where she had stood was just air. The space she had occupied was empty, the way a chair is empty after someone gets up and leaves the room. No residue, no fragment, no mark on the floor. The white and blue plate I had spent weeks watching her grow into. The pale gold hair that had fallen past her waist in a curtain when she turned her head. The emerald eyes, the sword, the cloak, the small curved fang clasp at her collarbone. Gone, all of it, cleanly, in one breath. I did not move. I stayed where I had landed, one knee on the basalt, my hand on the stone next to me for balance, the lucky gun loose in my other hand, the cursed sword at my hip still silent, still thinking, not yet knowing how to say what had just happened. I could feel the heat from the pool on the right side of my face. I could feel the cold of the stone under my palm. I could feel my own heartbeat in my throat, slow, slower than it had any right to be. I understood what had happened. I understood it perfectly. The humanoid giant had been a shell. The pool was the body. The pool had been the body the whole fight. Every region had fed back into it because it was drawing from itself. Every piece that had fallen into it at the end of Phase 9 had been absorbed because the pool was eating its own shell. The bubbling had not stopped because the giant had not stopped. The true giant had been under our feet the entire time, and it had just killed her. Unharmed would not work. There was no target. The skill needed something to restore, and the air held no mass, no fragment, no ember of what had been standing there. She had not been injured. She had been erased. Unharmed operated on bodies. The pool had not left a body. I understood all of it inside one breath. I did not scream. I am not built that way. I did not have a scream in me. What I had instead was tears, and they came without my telling them to, running down my face cold along the edge of the cloak collar, while the rest of me stayed perfectly still. I was crying. I was not making any sound. My jaw was set. My eyes were open. The tears were just a thing my face was doing while my mind did something else. My mind was going cold. It was going cold the way water goes cold. Not fast, not dramatic, just a steady lowering of temperature through every chamber until the whole interior was ice. I had loved her. I loved her. I had not said it. I was never going to say it. There would be no door to walk out of now, no outside world to walk her into, no sky for her to flinch at, no bird for her to laugh at. The flash of daylight I had seen for half a breath in Phase 8 had been the last time I would ever see her in daylight, and it had been imaginary. She had pushed me. That was the thing that sat at the center of the cold. She had pushed me. Her last movement in the world had been to put her hands on me and save my life. She had seen it coming. She had chosen. She had not hesitated. She had used the last second she had to spend it on me, and then she was gone. I stood up. The pool surged again. It rose in a slow, thick column at the center of the chamber. Not a humanoid this time, not a shape at all, just a mass of itself, lifting up out of itself in a column 20 meters across and rising. The bubbling accelerated. The heat in the chamber climbed. Twin points of searing white heat opened in the surface of the column where eyes had been on the shell, and the pool saw me. It had not been dead. Phase 9 had been a lie. The true giant was standing up. I walked toward it. I walked to the edge of the pool. The heat at the rim of the stone was enough to curl the hem of my cloak back. I could smell my own hair starting to singe. My boots were warm through the soles. The light off the surface was bright enough to hurt my eyes, and I did not close them. I had a skill I had never used. Endless hell. It was one of the nun skills, one of the ones the sage had warned me about back in the sage's workshop. It inflicts perpetual unending suffering on its target for as long as the wielder holds it active. Cost: 1 hour of the wielder's own lifespan for every second the skill runs. Requirement: direct contact with the target. The skill had to touch what it was operating on. It did not fire at range. I looked at the pool. I looked at my left arm. I understood what the skill was going to ask of me, and I did not care. I activated heat resistance. I activated unharmed. I knelt at the rim of the stone, and I put my left arm into the magma up to the shoulder. The pain was not pain. Pain is too small a word for it. It was a sensation so complete that my body stopped being able to distinguish between the arm and the rest of me. Every nerve I had reported at once, and then they stopped reporting. And then the reports came back in a single steady white roar. I kept my face still. I kept my eyes open. I did not pull back. I activated endless hell. The pool felt it. The surface of the pool shuddered in a way that had nothing to do with boiling. The heat ripple across the chamber stopped. The bubbling stopped. For one long second, the pool was a still plane of glowing orange, and then it began to scream. Not with sound. There was no sound. The basalt walls shook. The air shook. My teeth shook in my jaw. It was a scream in a register the chamber was not built to contain, and the chamber was trying to hold it anyway and failing. I did not let go. I kept my arm in the magma. I kept the skill active. I could feel my lifespan leaving me the way you feel when leave a room when a door opens. Something was being drawn out of me. Something that was mine. 1 hour per second. I was not counting. I did not want to count. The pool contorted. It twisted in on itself, column folding and unfolding, the mass of it flexing like something was trying to get out of a skin it did not have. The twin white eyes opened too wide and then shut, and then opened in a different spot on the column. The shutter ran down through the pool to its lowest depth and brought something with it as it came back up. a core, a crystalline heart, faceted, deep red orange, the size of a man's torso, rising slowly through the magma toward the surface, pushed up by the giant's own agony as the body tried to put its most precious part as far from the source of the torment as it could. The core breached the surface. I deactivated endless hell. The pool's scream cut off. The stillness that followed was the heaviest silence of my life. I pulled my arm out of the magma. It was a ruin. I did not look at it. I did not need to. I could feel it hanging at my side, numb in the places that were not burning, burning in the places that were not numb. The black ooze underlayer, trying and failing to hold the shape of what was underneath. Unharmed was doing what it could. It was not enough. I raised the lucky gun in my right hand. I put the last railgun round I had into the chamber. I fired. The shot went through the core dead center. The crystal cracked, held for a fraction of a breath, and then shattered in a single clean burst of light that washed the chamber from end to end. The pool collapsed, not in the way the shell had collapsed. The shell had broken apart in bright pieces and fallen back into the pool. The pool had no pool to fall into. The magma went dull in one long sweep from the center outward, the orange draining to red, the red to black, the black to the glassy cooled crust of a dead flow. The heat in the chamber dropped. The smell of melted stone went flat. The last wisps of steam rose off the surface and thinned and were gone. The giant was dead, really dead this time. The true giant, the master of the seven hells. The chamber was silent. I was alone in it. There was a magic core on the cooling surface of the dead pool, the largest core I had ever seen. And I walked out across the crust and picked it up with my good hand, and I consumed it. The surge hit me like a second heat ray. My body went hot from the inside. Every skill I had flexed at once. Every stat I had climbed by an order of magnitude in the span of a breath. My vision sharpened. My hearing sharpened. The ache in my ruined arm quieted to something I could set aside. Level, I understood without being told. 1458. MP pool, 14,580. Numbers I had never been close to. Numbers I had not believed existed in a single person. I was, for the first time in the run, something close to a god. And it did not matter. She was still gone. The chamber was still empty. The pool was still dead. The power was useless. I could reshape a mountain now, and it would not bring her back. I stood in the dark, cooling chamber with a ruined arm at my side and an unfamiliar ocean of mana inside me and a dead god at my feet, and I wanted her back more than I had ever wanted anything. I accessed the skill list. I scrolled past the ones I knew, past void, past unharmed, past ignore, silence, heat resistance, stop, uncontrol, intangible, past endless hell, whose cost was already moving through my veins like a subtracting tide. I found one I had never opened, fact unfounded. I read the description. It was short. It was honest. It said the skill erases a fact from reality as though the fact had never occurred. Activation requirement, sufficient MP, cost, unknown, unknown. I had just paid an hour of my life for every second of endless hell. I had just put my arm into magma and let it burn to activate a skill that cost my own time. I had just done the math on what a cost can be and what a cost can ask for, and the answer was anything. Unknown meant anything. I did not care. I had nothing left to spend that I was not prepared to spend. I held the skill in my mind. I held my intent. Erase the fact that Elphalis died. Not heal her. Not revive her. Not rebuild her from memory. Erase the fact. Undo the occurrence. Make the chamber a chamber in which the pool never rose, the heat ray never fired, the push never happened, the laugh never faded, the hug never ended. Make the world a world in which she is still standing here. I activated the skill. My right hand began to glow. Not white, not gold, 7-colored. Bands of red and orange and yellow and green and blue and indigo and violet moving in slow waves across my fingers and palm. A divine rainbow that was not the light of any skill I had ever seen cast. That felt older than the system. That felt like something the god entity itself might have held up to make a world. The MP in me poured out through that hand. All 14,580 of it, drawn down toward the intent, all at once, like a lake pouring into a straw. My knees went soft. My body began to slump. My vision began to dim. The chamber faded from me slowly, the basalt walls going gray, the dead pool going gray, the ceiling going gray, the cooling air going gray. My hearing went last. I heard my own breath. I heard the hum of the skill at the edge of hearing. And then, I did not hear that either. I was going somewhere. Not falling, not sleeping. Somewhere else. a place that was not the chamber. A void was opening inside my mind. It was opening the way a door opens when someone on the other side is waiting for you. And the last thing I thought before my consciousness dimmed out completely was that I did not know what the cost was going to be, and I did not care. And whatever was waiting on the other side of that door could have any piece of me it wanted, so long as it gave her back. I stepped into the void. And the void was already there, waiting, the way a room is waiting when you open the door to it. There was no stone, there was no magma, there was no air I could feel on my skin, no up, no down, no direction that meant anything, only a slow, dark, quiet as the inside of a closed book, and me inside it. I was not walking, not standing, not lying down. My body, whatever body was simply held, the way a thought is held inside a head, suspended without any need for legs. I could see. In front of me, floating in the slow dark, was a long strip of film, the old kind, plastic reel film, frame after frame, spooling out horizontally, each frame lit from within, as though a projector were behind everyone at once. The images were small and sharp, and I knew without being told what the reel was showing. It was her, frame by frame, the pullback from the hug, her face folding into the door smile again, the soft voice. "Darling, there is something I want to tell you." My heart lifting for 1 second, her eyes flicking past my shoulder and going wide, her hands flat on my breastplate, the push, me in the air, the beam, the instant in which she had been standing in front of that beam and then had not been standing anywhere. The worst seconds of my life, preserved in film, playing in slow, repeating loops in front of me. I watched. There was nothing else to look at. And then the reel began to burn, not with fire I could feel, a slow, quiet burn, starting at the first frame and spreading outward 1 frame at a time. Each frame curled at the edges, darkened, crumbled into small black flakes that drifted into the dark and disappeared. The pullback vanished, the door smile, the soft voice, the push, the beam vanished. The empty air where she had been standing vanished. The fact of her death was being erased, frame by frame. A fire without heat eating a history out of reality. I understood what I was watching. This was fact unfounded, seen from the inside. The event itself was being taken out of the timeline the way a bad take gets cut out of a movie. The real was the event. The burn was the undoing. The last of the frames drifted into the dark, and then the reel itself was gone, and the dark was only dark again. Then something spoke, not the goddess. I knew the goddess's voice. Hers was soft and amused and always performing. Hers was theater. This was not theater. This was older. The presence did not speak in sound. It spoke in the shape of meaning, arriving inside my mind, the way a truth arrives when you finally understand a thing you have been circling for years. It was calm, immensely calm, curious about me, the way a person might be curious about a small, clever animal doing a trick it was not expected to know. Not cruel, not kind. Present in a way that made the goddess, by comparison, feel small. It told me what I had done. The skill I had just cast belonged to a layer of the world above the skills I had been given. Skills at this layer do not run on mana. Mana only opens the door. The price is paid in other currency. Reality does not bend without being paid for. Every time this skill is used, something precious is taken from the user. Not memory, not time, not mana alone. Something precious. Something the user would not have given up in a quieter room on a quieter day. There would be a cost this time. It did not tell me what. It hinted, softly, almost gently, at the shape of it. Not lifespan, not memory. Something nearer the body. Something the event itself had put in the path of the fire, and so the fire had taken it. The skill was poetic when it chose its prices. It chose according to what the moment meant. The present seemed to be waiting for a response, not bargaining. It did not bargain. It was not offering me an alternative. It was telling me the terms after the fact, because I had already agreed to them the moment I activated the skill. It only wanted to know whether I understood. I did, and I did not care. I thought it, and it arrived in the presence the way the presence had arrived in me. The words were simple. Take what you need. Give her back. Something like satisfaction moved through the presence, as though I had answered correctly. Not approval. A small note of interest. The clever animal doing its trick exactly right. It told me one more thing before it went quiet. That I would probably see it again. That a mana pool like mine and a temperament like mine would bring me back to this skill, and to this door, and to this dark. It said this without warning in the tone, just stating. The way a doctor tells you a thing about your own body that you cannot change. I thought back, as clearly as I could, Fine, it was amused by that. I felt the amusement the way you feel a breath against your face on a cold morning. Then it was gone. The dark brightened, not into day, but into a softer gray, and the softer gray became warmer, and the warmer gray became color, and the color became the shape of a room I knew. Basalt walls, cooling crust underfoot, the black glassy sweep of a dead magma pool, the chamber. I was coming back. I came back slowly, hearing first a small wet sound, close, someone breathing, vision next, gray shapes sharpening into walls and stone, feeling last, the cold of the crust under my back, the ache of every part of me that had been through the giant and the magma and the skill. I opened my eyes. The ceiling of the chamber was above me, the basalt, streaked with the old fire scars of the giant and the new black horizontal burn where the heat ray had scored across the far wall. The dead pool was still. The air was cold in a way that a dead magma pool should not have allowed, and the cold was beautiful. I turned my head. She was lying beside me, not where she had evaporated. Beside me, close enough to touch, on the cooling crust, as though she had always been there, as though she had simply lain down next to me while I was in the dark and waited for me to wake up, alive, whole, breathing, the white and blue plate, the pale gold hair spread out across the stone, the small curved fang clasp at her collarbone, the cloak, the sword at her hip, every detail, all of her, intact. She blinked up at me. Her eyes were confused. Her brows drew together. Her hand went to her chest the way you put your hand to yourself when you wake up from a dream and you need to make sure you are still there. She looked down at her own body, then up at the chamber, then at me. Her voice, when it came, was small and puzzled. "Darling," she said, "I was pushing you, and then I was here. I did not speak. I could not. Everything in my chest was doing something I did not have words for yet. My throat was closed. My eyes had started again without my permission. For a second, neither of us knew whether it had happened. For a second, we sat with the possibility that maybe I had imagined her gone, that maybe she had imagined falling asleep, that maybe nothing terrible had occurred. Then we knew. Her eyes cleared. Her face changed, the way a face changes when a memory lands that did not land the first time. She understood what had happened to her and what had happened to me, and she understood at the same moment that whatever I had done had undone it. And then I moved. I moved before I thought about moving. I reached for her and I pulled her in against me, and I held her the way you hold something you cannot afford to drop. The tightest hug of my life, my face in her hair, my one good arm around her back, every muscle in me locked around her, as though if I relaxed even a little, she would be gone again. She held me back. She held me the same way. She was saying something, small and broken, into my shoulder. "Darling, darling, darling," over and over, the same word, the only word she had. I was saying nothing. I had run out of language. I just kept breathing her in, the warmth of her, the realness of her, the weight of her body against mine. I do not know how long we stayed that way, a minute, an hour. The time in that chamber did not matter anymore. Eventually, we pulled back, just enough to see each other's faces. My forehead against hers, her hands on the sides of my face, my eye wet on her palms, her eye wet on mine, neither of us letting go. And she said it. The thing she had been going to say at the door of the boss room. The thing she had been going to say when she pulled back from the victory hug. The thing the heat ray had taken out of her mouth before she could finish. She said it now, without the forced smile, without the delay, without the fear that she would not get the chance. "Darling," she said, "I love you." Her voice was steady. I looked at her. For my entire life, in that world and in this one, no one had ever said those words to me. Not my mother, not a friend, not a teacher, not a classmate, not the goddess who had thrown me down into this place. No one. And I had never said them back, because I had never had anyone to say them to. My mouth opened, and for the first time in my life, out loud, to another person, I said it. "I love you," I said. 3 words, small and uneven and shaking on the way out. The first 3 words I had ever said like that to anyone, ever, in either life. They came out rough because my throat was still closed around the last hour. She smiled at me. It was not the forced smile from the boss room door. It was the other one. The one from the moment she had first introduced herself in the corridor, open and warm and reaching her eyes. And then, slowly, carefully, because neither of us had ever done it before, we kissed. Her mouth was warm. Her hand stayed on the side of my face. I could feel the small movement of her breath. Everything in the chamber fell away from me. There was no basalt. There was no dead pool. There was no dungeon. There was no goddess watching and not watching from the white space. There was only her. The cursed sword, lying on the stone a meter away, did not say a single word. It understood. It stayed quiet. For once in its long, cursed life, the sword had the good grace not to interrupt. We stayed like that for a long moment. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us spoke at first. We just looked at each other, checking, making sure. Then I shifted to stand up. and as I pushed myself up off the crust with my good arm, my balance went wrong, and I glanced down, and I understood the cost. My left arm was gone, not cut, not bandaged, not a stump wrapped in cloth. Gone. Erased at the shoulder, the way the frames on the reel had been erased. A clean absence. Smooth, as though the arm had simply never been there. No blood, no wound, no ragged edge. The sleeve of my tunic fell flat against my side, where the arm had been, as though the tailor had sewn the garment that way on purpose. Clean absence. The shape of the cost. The god entity had chosen poetically. The arm I had plunged into the magma for her. The arm I had burned to activate endless hell to tear her killer open. The arm that had been, in every way that mattered. The arm I had already given. The skill had only made the giving literal. I looked at the place where it had been, and I felt nothing more than a quiet acknowledgement. So that was the price. It was not lifespan. It was not memory. It was not her. It was my left arm. That was all. Elphalis saw. Her face broke. She had not noticed in the hug. The plate and the cloak and the dark and the fact of being held had hidden it. Now, in the space between us, it was the only thing to see. Her eyes went to the empty sleeve, and her hand went to her mouth, and her breath caught, and the color went out of her cheeks. She started to apologize. She started to say my name, to say that she should never have let me do it, to say that she was sorry, that if she had known the cost was this, that she would have rather stayed. I stopped her. I put my good hand on her cheek, and I waited until her eyes came back to mine, and I said it as simply as I could. "It is a fair trade," I said. She shook her head. Tears were coming now, real ones, the quiet, steady kind. "Darling," she said. "Your arm." "2 arms," I said. "One her." "The math is not hard." She cried anyway. I let her. Some things need to be cried about. I was not going to tell her to stop. I only pulled her against my good side, her forehead against my shoulder, and I let her put her tears into my cloak, and I did not say anything else. I had said the thing I needed to say. The rest was for her to let out. The cursed sword, from the stone beside us, finally spoke. It said, quietly, without any of its usual theater, that it was done, that the boss was dead, that the dungeon master had fallen, that the labyrinth was, by every rule the system knew, officially cleared, that we had survived. Its voice was softer than I had ever heard it. Elphalis lifted her head. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked at me, and she did something I did not expect. She laughed. Small and wet and real. She laughed because the sword had said survived, and because we had, and because the word was so absurd and so true at the same time that there was nothing else to do with it. I smiled. A small one. The first in a long time. She stood up. She reached down and pulled me up with her one-handed, and I came up unsteady, and she tucked herself under my good arm, with her shoulder pressed against my ribs to hold me up, her arm around my back, her sword at her hip, my cloak falling uneven over the place where my left arm had been. We stood that way for a moment, finding our balance, finding each other's, and then I looked up, and I saw what had changed. In the far wall of the chamber, where there had been only basalt, a door had opened. I had not seen it open. It had simply arrived, the way the void had arrived, present, waiting, inevitable, tall and narrow, cut into the stone as though it had been there all along, and we had only now been given permission to see it. Beyond the door, something was glowing faintly, not magma, not firelight, a softer light, warm and steady, like a lamp left on in a room further in. Elphalis looked at the door. She looked at me. She did not ask what it was. She did not have to. We walked toward it, slow, because I was unsteady, because the skill had hollowed me out, because the arm was gone and the balance was wrong. Her shoulder under my good arm, her sword at her hip, the cursed sword lifted from the stone and sheathed again. Quiet. The chamber cooling behind us. At the threshold, she paused. She looked up at me. Together, she said. Together, I said. And we stepped through the door, into the warm light beyond it, into whatever was waiting on the other side of what we had just survived. The light beyond the door was warm, not hot the way the chamber had been, just warm, the way a room feels when someone has been living in it. We stepped through, and what I saw stopped me. A crater, where the magma pool had been, where the giant had risen from, a bowl of cooled black stone, wide and deep and still. The pool was a ring of solidified basalt, like a hand had closed the fire off with a lid. And in the center of the crater, at the bottom of the bowl, there was a cabin, a small wooden cabin, maybe twice the height of a man, plain peaked roof, single door, unpainted boards, grayed with time. It looked like something a craftsman had built with his own hands in a quiet stretch of forest and walked away from for a long while. It should not have existed. Not here. Not under all that stone. There is a barrier on it, Elphalis said softly. I can feel it from here. I could feel it too. A soft pressure against the skin, like standing too near a candle. That is how it had survived. The giant had sat on top of this cabin for generations, and inside the barrier, the cabin had stayed exactly the way it was right now, waiting for whoever could reach it. I tried my arm. At the lip of the crater, I reached inward the way I reached for any skill, and I said the easy one first, unharmed. A skill that closes wounds. Nothing moved at my left side. I tried the restoring one, the one that coaxes tissue back from brink. Nothing. I understood then what I had already known. The skills operate on damage. My arm was not hurt. My arm had been erased. There was nothing for the skill to find. You cannot heal nothing. The arm would stay gone. Whatever came next would have to be built, not regrown. Elphalis had watched me try without speaking. When I let it go, she squeezed my ribs once through the cloak and started us walking down into the crater. At the cabin door, she paused. After you, darling, she said. I pushed it open. The inside was not the inside. The cabin from outside was 2 man-heights tall. The room I stepped into was vast. A long hall with a high ceiling, shelves along 2 walls, a table in the middle with 2 chairs drawn up to it, a second door at the far end, warm, steady lamplight from nowhere I could locate. The inside was larger than the outside by an order I could not even name. Spatial magic, Elphalis whispered, not the small kind, the old kind. I was looking past her, at the middle of the room, above the table, suspended in the air with no visible support, cross-legged, eyes closed. There was a man, old, very old, translucent, so the shelves behind him were visible through his robe and his beard. A long white beard spilling down over his chest, a pointed cloth cap atop his head, a simple pale robe, a face lined with the kind of lines that only come from outliving the things you built. A ghost. He opened his eyes. His eyes were pale, tired, calm, and not surprised. He looked at us the way a man in a quiet house looks at the person who finally knocks on the door after he has given up on ever hearing a knock again. He spoke. His voice came into my head as meaning more than as sound. In my English, in the language I had thought in as a boy in Japan, and then again as a boy here. So, he said, someone finally came this far. Elphalis was listening, but her eyes were unfocused, hearing sound she could not decode. The ghost noted it. He made a small gesture with one translucent hand. Elphalis, startled, pressed her hand to her ear. Oh, she breathed. Welcome, the ghost said. Now to both of us. Please, sit. I have been expecting someone, eventually, to come this far. I did not know when. I did not know who. I only knew the giant would have to fall, and I had been here long enough that eventually something had to. May I ask your name? Elphalis said, carefully. The ghost smiled, a small smile. It looked like something he had not done in a long time. John Smith, he said. I felt Elphalis go still beside me. Then she turned her head and looked at me, and her eyes were the eyes of a person who had just been told the story she was sitting inside was true. Darling, she said. John Smith, the great sage of creation. Every child in this world learns it, she said, in the old stories. When the world was dark, before the kingdoms, there was a great sage. He built things with magic no one had ever seen. They called him the Sage of Creation. He saved the world once from a darkness the myths only describe sideways, and then he vanished. The stories say heaven took him back. She looked at the ghost. You are real, she said. John Smith nodded slowly, the tired nod of a man who had been real for too long. The stories are mostly wrong, he said gently, but close enough. Now, sit, breathe. Tea appeared in front of us in 2 small cups. He did not explain the tea. My story, he said, quickly. I was born on Earth, long ago. I was summoned by the goddess one morning, without warning, while I was walking a road I liked to walk. I woke up in a body that was not mine, in a noble house in this world, a child again, with all my memories intact. I grew, I learned. I found that I could do something no one else here could do. I could make things from nothing, a candle, a chair, a garden. I called it creation magic. I had invented it myself. The goddess had not given it to me. He looked down at his own translucent hands. The goddess did not like that, he said. She saw that I had become something she had not made. She saw that people were beginning to call me by a word she did not permit to be used for anyone but her. She decided I was a rival. There could be only one god in this world, and that was her. So she disposed of me. She did not kill me. Killing me would have risked the attention of something older than her. So she imprisoned me. She put me under a mountain of fire. She sealed the way up. She set a dungeon master on top of the seal, and she left me to fade, slowly, as a ghost, in a cabin I had built for a quiet retirement she would not let me have. I am not the first one she has done this to, he said. I am not the second. I am not the 10th. Every reincarnator she has ever summoned who threatened her in any way, she has disposed of. Some are dead. Some are imprisoned in places like this one. The goddess is not cruel in the way a monster is cruel. The goddess is a gardener who pulls up anything she did not plant. I understood. The frame she had hung around my neck in the first life had not been mine. It had been one frame in a long line, used on every reincarnator she had ever decided was more trouble than he was worth. She had practiced. She was good at it. I was not the target of a cruelty. I was a piece of an ongoing process. My revenge shifted in the same motion. It had been about me, about Kamisaka, about Elphalis. Now it was about all of them. Every name I would never know, every earth boy or girl the goddess had ever pulled off a road they liked to walk. The personal did not leave. It deepened and widened. I was still going to kill her for what she had done to me. Now I was going to kill her for all of them. It was not anger anymore. Anger is small. This was a mandate. I have the nun skill, I said quietly. I nullify magic. Any magic, including divine. The goddess does not know I survived. She thinks I died in the first rank assessment. She is not watching me. John Smith's eyes widened. A small movement. A man who had not moved much in a very long time. In that fraction, I saw something I had never seen on anyone's face before. Hope. The old kind. The kind a man keeps under a floorboard for generations because he cannot quite throw it away. Oh, he said, very softly. This might actually work. After everything, this might actually kill her. Elphalis reached across the table and set her fingers on mine. He stood up from his cross-legged float. Come, he said. I have been working on something for a long time. It has been waiting for the person who could use it. He led us to the second door. Behind it was the workshop. Shelves along every wall, floor to ceiling. Workbenches in rows down the center. On every shelf, on every bench, an item. Blades, rings, gauntlets, pendants. Small things the size of a thumbnail, and large things the length of a man. Vials stoppered with wax. Books bound in black. Mirrors, chains. Every single one of them was cursed. I could feel it the moment I crossed the threshold. The faint, dark hum of cursed item aura, layered and layered until the whole room sang with it. The sound of generations of focused work by a man with a grudge. At my hip, the cursed sword made a sound I had not heard it make before. Soft, startled, wondering, like a person walking into a room and seeing family they had not known were alive. Brothers, the sword said, quiet to itself. Sisters, I had cousins. I understood then. The sword had told me long ago that it was the source, that every cursed item in this world came from it. It had been made in this workshop in one of the earlier generations of his imprisonment. It had left somehow, stolen, sold, lost, and every cursed item after it had been shaped in its family tree. John Smith had built a dynasty of anti-goddess weapons down here, alone, with nothing else to do. I wondered where that one had ended up, John Smith said. He walked us down the central aisle and stopped at a specific workbench. On the bench, on a folded dark cloth, was an arm. Not a man's arm, a beast's arm. Long, shaped like something half wolf and half serpent. The skin was a matte black so deep it seemed to drink the lamplight. The forearm was thick and corded with ridge muscle under the hide. The hand ended in 5 thick, dark fingers, every finger tipped with a curved black claw. At the base, a smooth, dark socket. This, he said, is the black beast's hand. He looked at my empty left side. I built it for an occasion. I did not know the occasion would be you. I suspected a reincarnator would eventually reach me missing the correct limb. A cursed prosthetic. It eats. What it touches, it can devour. Flesh, stone, metal, magic. It can change size and length at the wearer's will. It is, with respect, a better arm than the one you were born with. He paused. It also eats the wearer, he said flatly, slowly, from the shoulder inward. Anyone else who wears this dies of it within a year. You, with the nun skill, will nullify the consumption curse entirely. No one else could wear it. No one else would survive it. Put it on, I said. He gestured. The cloth slid back. The socket glowed faintly, reaching for me. I stepped forward. Elphalis stayed behind me, her hand at the small of my back. The arm rose from the bench. It moved through the air like a swimming thing, not fast, just purposeful, and it fitted itself to the place where my left arm had been. A single soft sensation of something locking into place under the skin. Not painful, just definite. The nun skill rose around it, immediate and silent, and the consumption curse flickered, struggled, and went out. Then the arm was mine. I moved it. The fingers flexed. The claws opened and closed. I felt them the way I had felt my old arm. mine, responsive, alive. I willed it longer. It lengthened, shorter, it shrank, thicker, the muscle swelled, smaller, it became a child's arm, a better arm than the one I had been born with. He had been right. Elphalis made a small sound, not fear, recognition. Darling, she said, it suits you. John Smith nodded once. Good. Now, the rest. He swept his arm across the shelves. All of it, he said. Every cursed item in this workshop. I give it to you. Take it with you. Use it against her. I have no one else to leave it to. I called the black ooze up from under my cloak. The ooze rose around me and rippled outward into open, hungry readiness. I walked the aisles. Item after item was taken in, folded into the storage space of the ooze's interior. Blades, rings, gauntlets, vials, books, chains, mirrors. The whole generational arsenal of a man who had spent a very long time making weapons for one purpose. When I was done, the shelves were bare, and I had an arsenal inside me that would have been the envy of any king. John Smith sat down in the air again, cross-legged. He looked tireder than when we had arrived. There is a thing about reincarnator souls, he said. When one of us dies, one who was summoned, our souls cannot return to our old world. The door is closed behind us the moment we come through, and we cannot rest in this world's cycle either, because we do not belong to it. We fade, slowly, down to nothing, permanently. I am fading, he said. I have a little left, not much. He held up one translucent hand. The palm was already harder to see than the back. I want to ask you something, he said. You may refuse. Consume my soul, he said. Elphalis drew in a sharp breath beside me. I know what it sounds like, he said, gentle. Please hear me. You have a skill that allows you to take what is freely given and carry it forward. I have a soul that is going to vanish whether we do anything or not. What is in my soul is not only the light of a man, it is creation magic. It is generations of knowledge about how to kill a god. If I fade, that all fades with me. If you take it, it goes with you. I give it to you, freely, willingly, with joy, actually. I have not had joy in a very long time. Take it, please. Let me be useful once more before I go. I thought about the line I had drawn for myself, early, that I would not eat a soul that had not asked to be eaten. The sage in front of me was not asking to be eaten. He was asking to be carried. He was not food. He was a letter. He was a last will. I nodded. I accept, I said. He smiled, the biggest one yet, the kind that reached his eyes and softened the lines and made him look, for a moment, like the young man he must have been before the goddess took a road away from him. Thank you, he said. He closed his eyes, bowed his head, and let go. The light came out of him in a slow, pale flood, the way steam rises from a cup. It reached me and went in through my own chest without force, not violent, a transfer, a handing over. Inside me, memories arrived. A boy on a road in an old earth, walking. A noble father teaching him letters. The first candle he made from nothing. The first time he was called something the goddess had heard. The face of a wife he had loved and outlived. The long years of study. The longer years of imprisonment. The shape of creation magic in his mind. Geometric, clean, patient, enormous. All of it at once. And then, more slowly, sorted, filed, made mine. Creation magic appeared in my skill list. Quiet, waiting. My level rose. I felt the interior furniture of the self rearranging, rooms getting larger, doors opening. When it settled high enough that I did not want to name the number even to myself. The last of John Smith's light left his body. The beard thinned, the eyes thinned. The smile stayed the longest. Then the smile was gone too. The barrier around the cabin dissolved as he went. The cabin did not collapse. It just became a room that could, if it chose. Thank you, old man, I said quietly, to the empty air where he had been. Elphalis slipped her hand into mine, my left hand, the new one. The dark fingers closed around her pale ones, gently, carefully, and the black beast's hand held her without crushing, without cutting, without marking. It was already learning me. It was already learning her. I looked past her, to the far end of the workshop. There was a door there I had not noticed before, tall and narrow, framed in plain wood, and it was cut upward. Through it, I could see the bottom of a stone stairway, rising, leading up and out, through the ceiling of the workshop, and beyond. A way out, up, toward the surface, toward the world. For the first time since the goddess had dropped me into this place, the way out was not sideways and not downward. It was up. Darling, Elphalis said. Yes, I said. Let us go up, she said. Let us go find her. She was smiling, the corridor smile, the open one, the one without the door. I smiled back. My cursed sword was quiet at my hip, the lucky gun at my belt, the black ooze around me, full of a sage's arsenal, Excalibur at her side, my left arm a black beast's hand, and it was mine, creation magic in my head, A sage's lifetime in my memory, a lover at my shoulder, a mandate on my back. A door opened upward. I pulled her gently toward it with my new hand. She came. At the bottom of the stair, she paused. She looked up it. She looked at me. Together, she said. Together, I said. And we started to climb.